This is a workshop format, not a meeting, so we are in a budget hearing for the coroner this morning. And we are on page 33 is the coroner's budget. Is this, I think that's what you have, probably aren't signed off. So our typical format's been to just kind of allow the presenter some opening comments if you want, just talk about the budget in general, and then we'll go down through the line items one at a time and dissect those. And currently we stand at $295,841 over budget. So obviously our job is to balance the budget by tomorrow afternoon. And hopefully we don't do all that on the back of the coroner's office.
Yeah, because they got much choice.
Okay, so anything you want to open up with, Art?
Well, just the prices, like the autopsies has went up. And
Went up a lot.
yeah, they went up 15.
Yeah, they used to be $1,000. At the beginning of last year, they were $1,000. Sometime in the middle of last year, they went up to $1,500. The other price discrepancy there is that the transports went up from $150 to often $300. So that's where those changes come from, up from $26,000 to $40,000.
And so just a general question then, transports, we don't do those?
So, well, we can now that we have the truck, we can do that.
At times,
Yeah.
like if it's in the evening, we have no place to store. So we have to call them, they got a storage.
El Paso coroner's office can only take people between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. If a transport or a death happens on weekdays, if a transport or death happens at any other time, they have to be stored overnight and taken the next morning.
So where do you store them?
We contract with Holt. They take them to a refrigerator, unless we want to buy which I could put that together for a CARES Act package. We want to buy a refrigeration unit and a little Conex.
So we don't have the option after hours from the Springs to take bodies to Holt.
No, but yeah.
But then they would have to transport up to Denver as well.
They do the next morning. That's where that cost comes out.
But so right now, if we had a body that needed to be transported after hours, you would just call Holt and they'd come. But we could transport that body to Holt and then they could deal with it from there on, or no?
Well, they would still charge us.
Yeah,
Well, that's not my point. I'm just asking about.
yeah, we could,
Theoretically, yeah.
if we make arrangements. Randy, the coroner in Fremont County has a storage unit. We might be able to make some arrangements with him. He's told me before we could. I haven't had a way to do it till now.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's a whole new ball game now. And that's, obviously, we haven't had this conversation because we didn't have a vehicle. Now we have a vehicle, at least we could transport it if we had.
It's going to be really nice at times, especially you're at a bad scene, family, you got to take care of people.
Sure, yeah.
So where does that show up on the budget?
That's in the autopsies. I lumped the transports in with the autopsies.
So, okay, so that includes potentially going back and forth to Denver or to El Paso or to Holt or
El Paso, yeah.
And we try to be real careful on those, but sometimes you ain't got a choice. I don't want to take a chance. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want the county in trouble.
You don't have a choice about what? I'm not
Doing autopsies.
Oh.
Yeah, we don't have much of a choice. If we can get out of it, we will, but I'm not going to take a chance.
So does the law say an autopsy has to be performed on any unattended deaths?
It's up to us.
Yeah, and we have a certain amount of latitude and discretion if we understand the situation. For instance, the last 2 deaths that we've had, we have not done autopsies on because we knew one person had a history of diabetic ketoacidosis, and we knew that that's what probably did her in. And she was 95 years old, and we knew that that was the situation. The other gentleman, he had a severe heart condition. He checked himself out of the hospital AMA.
doesn't get a salary.
But the deputy coroner would, correct?
I don't get a salary.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Oh, okay.
Down here is,
Wow.
You got deputy coroner,
oh, I
It's
see,
down,
I
it goes
see.
on down later.
you got coroner and deputy.
Okay, I'm with you, I'm sorry. Okay, I got it. It's two different lines, I thought.
Yeah.
I need to
did too.
write
My
that out,
mistake.
because I've been asked that too, and
I
I
did
go.
too. I thought that's
Yeah, right.
coroner called
I get it.
deputy kind of
I get
thing.
it, I'm sorry, I was. Then I
Nope,
thought,
it's
"Geez, they
exactly
get
what
paid
it
the
looks
same.
like.
What is this all about?
Okay, all right. And so I guess, number one, I didn't know that you did not get paid to serve as a deputy coroner. So that's
Just per call.
Pardon me?
It's just per call,
Okay, so you do get paid. It's on an
on call.
On call.
Yes,
So where is that
PRN.
covered?
that's right there.
Contract labor.
Contract labor.
So we'll go on down. All right, so the salary, contract labor is 4,000 up 2,500 from 2020. Is that correct?
Yeah. We're just getting more sick calls all the time, Eddie. As you see, I guess we got too many people moving in.
So what do you pay the deputy? Is it one block time or is it an hour?
150 a call.
$1.50 every time you go out,
So
or
that,
150.
and that's for anything involved. So it may be 2 hours on scene, working with the family and putting the person with hold. It may be 6 hours in the middle of the night in the rain with the deputies,
Same
finding
price.
the hit and run and investigating that process.
Your magnanimity knows no limits.
It could be transport time. It could be the 4 days that I spend researching the conditions and communicating with the family, the next of kin. So it's not by the hour, it's just by the specific incident. So,
And
we were paying this to the deputy coroners. It was just being paid through the sheriff's office when the deputy coroners were sheriff's deputies.
Right, yeah.
So,
good point, thank you. So how do you determine if the deputy coroner goes or not? If you're out of town, if you're not?
I'm out of town, you can't get a hold of me. And a lot of times it's just nice to have two people there. A lot of it for loading and dealing with the family. Sometimes one person can't do all this.
Right.
You got to deal with the family, deal with this. It just makes it a lot smoother if you got two people.
I could imagine, yeah.
Bernard, I don't think we're questioning whether a deputy coroner's
Yeah.
necessity. We're just
No,
questioning.
my question was just how do you determine?
No, that's
whether or
fine.
not To use him or not? And then
It may have come across.
if you are out of town, for example,
He's full.
then does he have a backup?
That's what we got to work on. We're working on it now. We've had him in the past, but we don't right now.
I'm assuming if law
Default to a
enforcement was
deputy or
involved,
something.
one of them
Yeah.
would help. For example, loading or
Yeah.
bagging or whatever.
Sometimes Holt sends two people. A lot of times they send two people. Sometimes they don't.
But
But,
they might not get there
they don't get there
early on,
for
right?
yeah.
forever
Right,
sometimes.
so.
They basically arrive and are able to transport and help us often carry out of the house or something like that. But oftentimes we need to get the person out of the situation
Sure.
so that they can,
Bag,
so we're not staying on scene.
Right.
We don't want to, like the gentleman that passed away down here next to the church. We didn't want him sitting on the concrete,
Right.
on the asphalt for 2 hours while Holt was coming up. So we
Yeah, I'm not,
brought him here.
And we have used the ambulance there a lot for that, but sometimes that's inconvenient because they need to go someplace else.
could be, yeah,
And-
certainly.
So we hate to tie the ambulance up for stuff like that, but sometimes we've had to.
Yeah, well, obviously, I've never been on scene with both of you, so these is why I'm asking these questions. I'm
No,
not
you're
challenging,
fine.
I'm not,
I'd like you to know.
so that's the only way I can find out, is just ask you.
That's fine.
I don't, we kind of use these budget hearings as an opportunity to have a conversation about your,
It's like it's so convenient to have, he could deal with the family and I can deal, and vice versa. And sometimes it can be real strainful.
okay,
I guess
I
it
can't
put it that
imagine, I certainly don't have a grasp on that. Yeah, you did get to pick up yesterday, I guess.
Yes.
huh?
Yes.
Satisfied with it?
Yeah, so far.
Good,
It's a nice pickup.
good, excellent. So let's go through the budget. I think when we're done with that, I'd like to follow up with another conversation, but let's get to the budget because I know that's why you're here. So operating supplies. You feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, that's for body bags and what, stuff like that.
Now, I thought we bought a bunch of body bags.
We did.
Right.
We got a sell on them, I think, and we picked up some.
We bought some at the beginning of the year with the first round of CARES Act money. We're about halfway through those right now.
So
And we've been buying the better ones. There's nothing worse than having a body bag with us.
the body bag a one-time use?
Yeah, you get in a lot of trouble.
I didn't know.
Yeah, you
So-
can get,
So they're heavy canvas material we were buying the ones with straps on them. We used to buy the ones with integral handles, and they were just the zippers would break, the handles would rip. And sometimes we have to use two of them because we'll be loading them up and there'll be blood or bodily fluids transferred onto them. So then that's a hazard. Then we have to put it into another bag because we don't want Holt or El Paso coming back and suing us. So that's an interesting little conundrum. But basically, we buy the really good heavy-duty bags that are puncture resistant, and they're about $40 a piece.
I was gonna ask you if you could share with us about the cost of the bag.
Yeah.
So you feel like 2,200 is a reasonable number there for operating supplies?
it's just all the guesswork. I hope it is.
That's all budget is guesswork. So let me ask a question. If in there, is there any expenses that could be paid through the CARES Act as opposed to being budgeted?
You know, Vern's real good at that. He's been doing finding money that I don't have.
The operating supplies,
I was thinking of body bags, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you've got a one, so I was thinking if we could get the state to, if we budget it, it's not eligible for the CARES Act.
I understand. So I have a proposal for about $5,000 worth of stuff that would set us up through CARES Act, that would set us up for the next 2 years. If we can get it through the CARES Act, we can actually set ourselves up for the next 2 years for all body bags, all of our hazmat, all of our Tyvek suits, masks, gloves, booties, knee pads, that type of thing.
Is that what
And we would be able to eliminate about 80% of the operating supplies.
Did you already have that on your sheet? It's,
Yes, sir. Yep.
Donna, how many, where are they now on that operating fund? Because you've gotten some CARES money already.
Well, I'm over because I spent stuff with the CARES Act, but it's a pass through. So it looks like on my budget that I'm $200 over on the operating supplies.
So I was just trying to compare because 2,200 might not be enough.
And I'm thinking just the opposite. I'm thinking if you could, it's just a conversation. I'm just thinking if you could get the essential supplies through the CARES Act, we could probably reduce this some.
Right.
We're trying.
No.
Yeah, but since we're doing budget now,
Well,
I would like to have a feel for that. I mean, if
Can I
you
get
say,
Over by 400.
Can I
Okay.
interject
That's
a comment about that?
sure,
When you guys say the CARES Act, are you talking about the coronavirus relief fund?
that's exactly what I'm referring to.
So
Reimbursement for non,
to be eligible for that, it cannot be a budgeted item from March to December. We're not budgeting March to December,
oh, you're right. This is next year. Good point.
but, and I
Unless we buy a
just really
bunch.
now formalize that thought process.
Oh, you're
Because
right.
we've been talking about it, but what we do in the budget now will not affect the coronavirus relief fund
But what Vern said
eligibility.
would be viable if he does it because we have an issue now and you buy enough and then it carries over is all. I
It
think.
would have to be over and above what he budgeted for
right,
this year.
Right.
Following up with what you said.
And I'm fighting the urge to get off onto a CBRF conversation, which I don't think would be appropriate.
Right.
Now we'll have to do it if and when we get an application dealing with those corona.
And are you coming to the board to do that?
Yes, on the 21st, I'll be presenting. I have $5,000 worth of unbudgeted coronavirus preparation expenses for corner work. And if we could do that, it would,
Excuse me.
may impact this budget,
exactly.
but you can't build this budget based on what you think might happen with the CDRF committee. I understand
Sure.
that. Yeah, okay.
So my suggestion is, gentlemen, let's leave it at the 2,200 that's recommended. And maybe there'll be a surplus at the end of next year if it works out, and we'll just apply it next year's deficit.
Right.
That's just my suggestion.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
We're not talking about it.
Yeah, me too. Is,
So 208,
you,
I'm sorry.
it's funny, you came up with $200 extra.
Oh.
That's odd.
Well, everything's gone up in price.
I know, but I'm just
It's
kidding.
kind of,
It's not a lot.
oh, yeah.
No big deal.
So it's okay.
206, sorry, travel. So this travel, if I understood what you said earlier, does not include transports.
No, that's just fuel and we're not reaching that level. Let's see, I think we're not reaching that level. We could probably cut out 400 or 500
What's
out
the
of
travel for?
gasoline
No, I know.
and repairs and maintenance.
I know.
School and stuff like that.
It's not autopsies and transport.
No,
bodies.
it's-
It's doing other things the
yeah, it's-
coroner does.
exactly.
Like meetings and.
Going to the meetings and that type of thing.
2,500 left.
Yeah, we didn't have no meetings this year.
Yeah,
On
well,
travel?
that's everybody. Can we bring it to 1,000, or would you feel more comfortable with
But it was
15?
45.
Ah,
They had 4,500, what?
I see.
Yes.
It says they had 1,500 for travel. That's not correct.
It is not.
It should be.
Well, the estimated current should probably be about 2,000 is what they're spending rather than the 4,500 that they budgeted.
Okay, so the budgeted was 4,500 last year. See, and I have to be honest with you, I've been looking at estimated current 2020 as a budget.
I did
number.
too. I did
And
too.
not always, on some places you could, let's say you didn't buy the computer you were going to, and we knew that, I would not count that in there as an expense.
No, that's a good
That
point.
helps give you your background.
Because I've been looking at it as last
I
year's,
have too. I've been looking at it as last year's budget, so maybe we,
so 4,500 is quite a bit.
Most of the time it is, probably 90% of the time, but you know, there is that other that it is not.
so they spent how much so far this year?
33,000. So
$2,022.
2,000.
Well, I guess 2,000 would be about right. Huh?
Yeah, I'd leave it.
Okay, 211? Nope, sorry. 208, keep wanting to jump ahead a lot here. My glasses are fogging up. Repairs and maintenance. I'm assuming the vehicle is the only thing really that you have repairs and maintenance. Vehicles, I'm sorry, now that you have two. Are there new tires on the deputy corner?
They're pretty good shape.
So can we drop that to 1,000? We've got a brand new vehicle. I wouldn't expect a lot of repairs and maintenance.
I think so. We were told by the dealer that we need to take it in for its 6-month checkup, and they didn't give me a price tag on that. But I think 1,000 would be reasonable for that. We have good tires all the way around.
Okay, that would be number one concern, would be tire replacement. So if you guys could concede 1,000 there, that would sure help us.
You bet.
Okay. And no rent involved in your department, is there, because you're a VSO? Utilities, 221, no. So it's back to 227, the autopsy. That's a huge jump. I'm not challenging you, I'm asking.
I know,
what they
it
think you
is.
to do. So,
It's a scary item. You just don't know what's going to happen.
right, so that's roughly 30, well, that's 30 autopsies. You said you've also got other expenses in there, is that correct?
That's 25 autopsies and transport.
Okay, all right, so 2 a month
Yeah.
average.
Yeah.
If you feel that's what you need, I'm not gonna,
We are averaging that. We're actually we're
More than that.
$3,000 over right now. But our previous budget was 28, so I think we're at 33.
Previous
They
budget.
spent 27,000.
Oh,
27.
And so now they have all these months with only $930.
So was their budget 28 or was that a current?
28 was what they budgeted.
So we're gonna come in right at budget on it.
Well, you have one more,
Way over.
Way over.
By the
one
end
more
of the
call,
year.
put you on, so.
Oh, yes.
See, because Thanksgiving,
Okay.
Christmas, that's the big
October.
time.
It's just surprising how much more. Wow.
We need to leave it, we'll leave it.
Yeah, I think we got, but then we need to leave it.
We could cut it all and just take it out of the general fund. Just kidding.
It would come out of general fund eventually, right?
One way or another.
One way or the other.
Some you gotta pay, I guess.
Okay, I'm all right with leaving it. Sounds like we still got 2.5 months left and you got $900 left on your autopsy budget, so we know that's probably gonna run over.
It's going to be closed.
We don't need to be here next year going, yep, we ran over because we didn't budget it.
So,
It helps if you keep these people going up and climbing up the mountains.
yeah,
Fortunately, we were able to actually get the autopsy for the last gentleman covered by Swatch.
Yeah, if it's-
You're on the border.
If
Yeah,
it's in
He
Swanton
was on the other
County,
side, so. Maybe you're just
even
bringing
the
back over to the other
transportation,
side.
Bring 'em over here.
they're supposed to pay for the transportation, everything. I do that just to help out. But we shouldn't have any expense on stuff like that. I try to keep from doing it.
All right, we'll move on. 305 communications.
Kind of an odd one because you didn't do anything in 20, but there was a lot in 2019. Now it's 1,000. Is that just,
We got 2 new radios in 2019. So that's why it was 3,100. This year, I just put that in there in case we needed to repair any radios. There's a $300, $300 in software that we use. So if we wanted to cut that down to 500, might.
You know, I think our philosophy's been not to try to nickel and dime people. If you feel like there's a chance you'll need 1,000, fine. If you think there's a better chance you'll only need 500, certainly we use it, but
didn't work nickel?
I guess that would be up to you guys, whatever you're thinking. You must think you need 1,000 or that number wouldn't be in there, so.
Yeah, it's obvious looking at your budget, you have not padded it. I mean, some people,
We try not to.
no, I can tell you, just looking at it, I know you have.
Very
If
straightforward.
you need it, you need it.
So I'm okay with leaving that. And then insurance, and then down to 312 dues and meetings. I had just made a note that I thought that was high for your department, but I don't really know that. I just made a note to myself to ask you about that.
We don't even know if we're gonna have meetings.
Right.
Well, we don't know.
We haven't
Same
spent,
with everybody.
we've hardly spent anything this year because,
Sure.
so you'll notice in 2019, we spent $2,700. That was the dues and meetings to keep art registered as and updated as a coroner. The mandatory training that we had to go to, I actually received a scholarship for that. So that wasn't even reflected there. For the mandatory trainings that the coroners and deputy coroners have to go to. So
Did you spend anything this year at all?
we haven't, no,
So
no,
it's 4,000 sitting there?
because they canceled all the meetings.
Yeah, so I don't know what we're gonna do on continuing education. That's kind of scary.
They've set us up some stuff online and
I haven't used it much.
we'll have to, we'll just have to sit down and do that.
Do you think 2,000 you could live on for that or not?
Probably.
No,
3?
maybe 3.
Okay.
But like I said, we'd have to look into scholarships at that point because 2,700 was both of us, or excuse me, was Art for one meeting, me for one, or excuse me, the registration and dues. And like I said, I received a scholarship to the conference, so.
And they do give out scholarships every year.
So you're
All
giving
they do
us
is
back
apply for it.
1,000, is that what you're doing?
Yeah, maybe 1,000.
So-
yeah.
But let me make a comment that we've made to almost all of the
Uh-huh.
presenters, people who are in the budget. Even though we're cutting it, if it becomes a necessity later, because this is all just a guess, we all understand that.
Mhm.
So if you come back and say, look, I don't have the money for this in my budget, but I really need something, we're not going to tell you no if you really need it. So, I mean, this is not you just can't go to an important conference because we cut your budget. You come tell us, this is something I have to go to, and we're gonna go. I suspect we're gonna go, fine.
I really think we really need to go to the classes like that, keeps the county out of trouble.
I'm
Keep
fine.
everything out. They have some good classes. It's, Buck went to those and he really,
We are not
Thought they were
knocking
good.
this one iota. We're just trying to figure out.
No,
where
I'm
we're
just
coming up
figuring-
with
I'm just telling you for
$300,000.
your information.
All right, so we're gonna take 1,000 off that, make it to 3,000, but like I said,
Okay.
if that isn't gonna cover it when the time comes, because if we're in this Corona thing, you know, through most of next year also, it's all gonna be virtual and won't be an expense, so we just don't know. This is all a guess, that's what a budget is.
So you guys okay with trying 3?
That's what he said.
Okay.
Don, I've got a question for you because we keep coming into this, and I guess a meeting's a meeting, but boy, it'd be nice to have a training line item.
Most budgets do a 217. Just this one doesn't have. the
Turned into a fire.
I just wonder if that's something we could look at for training costs.
And a lot of them do have, it's educational training, but it's a 217, just this one doesn't. Or
This page or this software? I'm not following
Line item.
217, so we must have a line item in
the
this
sheriff
budget.
has some.
Okay,
There's other
Different
people.
people, mine has it in there,
okay.
but
This
just not,
corner.
yeah.
Okay. So I wonder, I know you get tired of me saying this, but this is the third year I've thought it. If we're gonna have a line item, I'd rather have training and education versus the Forest Service vehicle, but I just would like
And
to
I will
tailor our
try
budget
to
fit our needs.
remember to do it. I mean, I
Okay, just thought.
Is Forest Service vehicles on everybody's coroner's budgets in
No, not
the state?
everybody, but- Well, yeah, it might.
Probably is. It's a stock thing.
Although we see autopsies on a lot of them also. I think Guinevere had it on hers.
Yeah, I know.
well, I would love to have time to go through and do the whole thing over.
But you're getting a new system that may fix it all. We don't know.
So we might be able to, it will be
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yep, just thought. Okay, anything else?
So you're saying, I'll just make a note, you would like to see the dues and meetings broken out into specific dues and meetings and training then?
Well, I would personally, but.
Because the meetings we go to are the training.
Right, and so we wouldn't know that unless you were here to tell us.
Right.
Yeah,
The
understood.
line doesn't allow for that.
I might easily give up a meeting to go to a training.
I see what you're
And if
saying.
you were on the hot seat on the budget, we'd say, well, we think that's a little too much. Well, that budget includes all this. Well, to me,
That's why we
it'd be a
have-
lot cleaner to say,
Yeah,
Okay.
this is
I
our
agree.
training and
I think it's
education
a good
budget.
idea.
So upgrading our accounting methodology, new system. Hopefully it's gonna, I mean, this is from the 80s. Okay, so, and that's a killer for our budget too, but that's another issue. It's not your issue. Hopefully the new system is gonna be able to be much more flexible.
Any other questions, commissioners?
Looks good. We got,
Okay,
you
so,
come back 3,000 more times, we'll balance our budget.
Okay.
Take 1,000 every time you come.
So you're conceding $2,000 off of that, correct?
293, 841, 44.
So if there's no other questions about that, I want to have another conversation, if you don't mind, if you have time. Good.
Yeah, I gotta go to the skin doctor so I get out of here.
All right. So questions have been brought up. I brought it up once. Commissioner Prince has brought it up once. Neither one of us have an answer to that. And that is, how do we, as a county, you as an elected official, determine priority of, I will call it sharing burden between a deputy coroner and our IT GIS director? Question is this: if he's at work, do you feel it's a priority for you to pull him out of his regular job to go do coroner stuff? I don't know how to put it any simpler than that.
I usually ask him if he can get away, and if he can, he does, but a lot of ways, I understand what you're saying, but you stop and think about it, boy, it's really nice for me, because just like with the budget, and he finds grants for me, you got grants for that, the pickup, a lot of get, the county's out, what, $12,000 on that pickup? So in the long run, I think he knows what's going on. and it saves money for the county, and it helps me out a whole lot.
So you're leaving it up to Vernon to decide whether or not he can,
Usually,
quote unquote, I don't mean dollars,
Yeah.
afford to leave his day job, quote unquote, to go do corner stuff.
when he gets, he's got, if he can't get away, he has at times, he says, I can't get away right now. And that's fine. If that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does. I just didn't know what your process was.
That's how we kind of got it figured out anyway. And it's,
So then
To me,
he
it's
would
very-
coordinate. If you can't, then you try to get a deputy to do it or somebody else.
So for instance, on the days that, there are days when I have to be here at a meeting. When we were setting up a Zoom or something like that, I have to be here at this meeting. I would call Art and say, this time, I cannot respond to any calls during this time period at all, because I have my other responsibilities that are absolutely essential right now. And so, and we do that. And then Art will call me and say, I'm going to be at a doctor's appointment in Denver, block out this time. And I said, okay, I will make certain that I'm available for this at this time period. I'm not going to go riding my horse this weekend because Art's has to be gone for that time. So we work that scheduling out pretty. We try to anyway.
yeah.
Mr. Prince, you were going to say something?
No, we had an incident the last Board of Health executive session meeting that we wanted to live stream it, and you were out on the call. And that's when I raised the question, going, now, wait a minute, where does the priority for your assistant coroner versus your IT director, where does that come into play between the two? Now, I recognize someone dying and you have a family is extremely important. And I'm not knocking that in any manner whatsoever. But I am concerned about not having, either not having a backup here who could do, like Alex came in and did a lot. So, and maybe this is just in an interim while we're trying to get a deputy. This one incident occurred, and that's what raised because I asked Kara, so Kara would live stream, it says, we're having an issue, and Vern's out on a call. And that's what got my gears working. And I'm not negative on any of this. I'm
Okay,
just
well,
trying to
appreciate that.
understand the process.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at. I'm not trying to say that his day job is more important than him going and serving as a deputy coroner in the event we have a death. I'm not saying that at all. Understand that? I just wanted to ask you programmatically how you guys have decided to work that.
Well, that's kind of like we've decided amongst ourselves.
And I can commit to working to streamline these processes. And this is also why I'm working to get an assistant and train up my interns so that we can get that squared away.
And we're talking about getting another deputy too, but we just are being kind of slow about it, and in particular, we don't know.
Is Buck does he still?
No, he didn't.
Okay,
Kind
I
of
just
backed off now.
That's fine.
I haven't talked to him lately, but
The worst comes to worst, Art goes out by himself.
yeah, oh yeah, that for years.
If Art's available.
Or he goes out by himself too. He has.
That
Sometimes it's
incident that
just
you're
a
talking
worry.
about, Art was out of town.
Yeah, I understand. I know
Okay.
that. I know that. And that's really just, that's how the gears started working. I just want to give you the background of it,
Okay.
You
where
know,
I'm thinking.
it may not never happen again. It may happen right away. You never know.
Look, this is not an ongoing.
No, it's not an
issue.
everyday issue.
One-time deal, but I raised the question because I was curious to know where what are we gonna, how are we gonna handle that? But I think if you get an assistant like you're working on, that solves the problem.
And also, if I know in advance, I'll communicate with Art better. Like, for instance, we've got that meeting next Wednesday at 6:00. I'm gonna, talk to Art and say, this time period, I won't be available for any calls. We'll just have to cover it that way.
But the question is, an assistant costs money.
This is true.
Where's that? So I'm gonna have to, that'll be a whole
For
different.
training, for him.
No, if you're gonna come up with a full-time
The
assistant.
second person,
Yeah.
you're right, talking about the corners.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, again, I would assume you'd handle a deputy assistant as a PRN situation as needed and
Oh, are we talking about an assistant deputy or are we talking about a deputy or assistant for IT?
I thought.
Oh,
Either one.
He
Okay.
said, I thought Art said.
It's Art
you guys-
saying
he was talking about
I got
trying to get you
confused too.
assistant
Getting assistance.
As
Mhm.
coroner.
Right,
So
that's what I
you're
was.
the deputy coroner.
Right.
Then we're
Oh.
talking about an assistant.
Well, I mean, he can have as many deputies as,
Right.
as he wants.
But we got to train him too, and we got
Yeah.
expenses there, so we're trying to keep that.
Keep those
That's
costs
cheaper
down.
than buying another body. Or use that
Yeah.
quote, but
Uh-huh.
And you want to get the right person too. You know, it's just,
And then just off the cuff question, when is your term up, Art?
It'll be next year. next
22,
election. Not this one, the next
Right.
one.
off election, right? So it'd be
Mhm.
2022.
Same as the sheriff, isn't it?
seems like you just
I
ran.
think so.
It does. Time goes by awful fast.
He's on the same cycle as the sheriff.
Okay, yeah, 2022, okay. Yeah, so the reason I asked that is if you want to implement stuff in your department, if you think this second deputy is justifiable or needed, as, in my opinion, certainly as a PRN case, what's that hurt? You'd never pay them unless you actually needed them, and you probably wouldn't need 3 people on one scene unless it was mass casualty, but. And that's the other thing, we get into a mass casualty thing, let's say there was 4 or 5 people dead down on the highway today.
I've
2
been-
people would be a challenge to cover that.
Absolutely.
I've been on one that had 3 or 4, and that's really a mess.
Be a scramble on it, so, okay, just thought. Anything else, gentlemen?
I'm comfortable, thank you. Appreciate
Good
it.
here.
Okay, Dawn, are we good?
Well, thank you.
All right, yeah, thanks for coming in, Art, appreciate that, and thanks for being flexible today too, that helped us out.
Okay.
All right, see ya.
Bye, Art.
Oh, we didn't find $298,000.
Only if you came back in
Um,
2009.
Thank you, very good job.
Thank you. Were we rolling into IT or was there somebody else?
We can, I think.
Thank
that
you. I
was-
thought that was the
So,
plan.
Okay.
We're just 10 minutes ahead of schedule, so you're good.
That's
37.
Indeed, page 37. A little bit. Try to be.
Yeah. Obviously, you know the format, because we just kind of went through that, so. I know we've got a pending agenda item that is totally extraneous to this. Is that fair to say that it
Yes,
has
sir.
nothing to do with this budget?
I think so.
Okay, so. we-
I haven't worked any of those.
Fund.
And, well, actually, we have a couple. We have the Corona Relief Fund, we have the PIO discussion. And so, but that's outside of what we've got.
Today.
Yeah, today. Because I've already presented this one, already sent this one to you all, so.
We can maybe have a little of that conversation, but there's no sense
Let's see
beating that horse.
Okay, where we are.
Whipping-
No, when we get to beat it next week.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to
Keep doing it
steal
over and
all of
over
our
again.
thunder today, right?
Okay,
There's no decisions today.
So IT,
yes.
is it fair to say that we're talking about the IT GIS or
Yes, sir.
not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's not overlap conflict of upstairs, that's different. Connected but different.
Connected but different. Yeah.
Just want to say, I just have not had any conversations where people say, man, we just can't get Vern to do it. Well,
Well, I hope
I
not.
don't know how you manage it, but I think, from my perspective anyway, I think you're doing a great job. I think
Thank you.
everybody's been pleased. There are times when people are frustrated, but it's only because they have to be in line.
I see.
You know what I'm saying? You're doing something else, and well, he's whatever. But it doesn't mean that they're unhappy with your services to their department, so.
Thank you.
Which gets us to, I don't think we're paying you enough because Tom's going to ask you about the 2.5%. Did you take it?
I did. I went up from, I did do the, well, I did two. I did,
2%.
yeah, 2%, yeah.
Okay.
So you'll notice that my budget is only $729 or so more than last year's.
Right.
Um,
Which if everybody did that, we wouldn't have to be having budget hearings.
That's true. That's true.
Well, we'd have them, but they'd be pretty short.
They're pretty quick.
We wouldn't probably be over budget, so. So you did get your 2% in there, contract labor. Does that cover?
That's emergencies. If I have to, excuse me, for just emergencies, hire somebody to do something that I can't. Say I injure myself and I can't climb a tower and replace an antenna or something like that. I've got to have somebody else that can do
Did you
that.
use it this year?
I don't believe I've used any. Well, no, I don't believe I've used any this year. No.
That's reasonable.
Okay, 203. Operating supplies.
So operating supplies is just, it's the day-to-day, the lightning strike that knocks out your wireless, the rolls of paper that I need for printing, that type of thing. Just.
I've been guilty of saying, hey, do you have any thumb drives? Yeah, here's one.
Yep.
Well, they don't just fall out of the sky. Somebody's got to pay for those.
No, I buy those by the 10 pack. So for that very reason, and I'd rather you come to me because
Right.
this is actually a huge security issue. The biggest breach of military security was caused by Russian agents putting thumb drives underneath the windshield wipers of people in the Pentagon's parking lot.
And then they just take them.
They said, "Oh wow, cool, a free thumb drive."
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
the biggest breach of defense security. So I'd rather anyone come to me and say, I need a thumb drive, and yes. And I actually asked OEM 2 years ago to stop handing out thumb drives because it's just a bad, unsafe practice.
Yeah.
So
And we send an email
Yes, sir.
out to that.
I'm sorry, on that quarter request you're working on, should we put that on the thumb drive and give it to them that way, or?
it might be too large to email, so I could do that on a thumb drive.
Why don't you do that, and I'll
Okay.
just, we'll give it to Kara, because
Okay.
when you get it done, then I'll let him know to come, he can
Okay.
come get it.
Sounds great. We'll do.
Okay.
We got two computers that are going bad. I got one, he's got one.
Yes.
Mine,
Straightened out.
but it's been fine ever since.
Oh, good deal.
So where did who buys that? Where's?
Well, those were bought, these were $2,000 computers that were bought out. So if,
I know she
Donna,
did that, but I'm asking now where it would.
Um,
come in.
generally, if a department, what's that?
Commissioner's budget or not?
Yeah, generally a department schedules their own, well, I mean, I schedule and tell them what they need, but they budget for the expense.
I don't think we budgeted anything.
Short timer pays for them.
Outstanding point. Thank you.
I thought Jay would, that'd be a going away gift.
Get my expense account out. Got some more to add.
Give them some credit cards.
There's only 21 lines on that voucher. You need another one.
Uh-oh, yeah.
I often do that, so please see page 2, total from page 2, page 3.
Wow.
Well, I mean, they could, because each line items, I mean, it could be $6. It could be, a pack of batteries. So.
So I'm assuming that, to follow up on Commissioner Canada's question, then if we believe we need to replace these, or if Vernon believes we need to replace these, that would go on the commissioner's.
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
I think Bill's, it'll last a little while longer, but it probably needs to be replaced next year.
Yeah, and mine's been acting up. I can
Okay.
tell you, it didn't have the sigh of death that these two experienced.
Yes.
Every time I turn around, I say to Kara, I said, man, this computer is not like life today. You'd think the lifespan would be a little longer than that, right?
They're
only 4 years. 4 years old.
They're 4 years old. Yeah, that's depending on how you're using them,
Yeah, well, and I transport mine a lot.
right? So
I
it
know
could
that's
be.
hard on them.
It could be.
But
They all have rotary hard drives in them, so that's, that when transporting and moving around. So,
Solid state ones aren't much better though.
well, the new solid state ones are just mind-blowingly fantastic, literally 1,000 times faster than the rotary.
Really?
Yep. It's amazing to use. They're amazing. I'm putting it's called an M.2 hard drive there in every new computer that I buy, because they have so little maintenance. They don't rely on the spinning disk, which if dust gets in there, you can lose a hard drive. So it's a nice setup. Yep.
But they run a couple grand.
No, I have Dell make them special for us, so they're not too. They're probably an extra $50.
Oh,
So that's
so if we were to budget
for these two new of the same caliber, you're looking at $1,500 a piece.
We don't really need this caliber, do we?
I could.
If I remember when they were being purchased.
Yeah.
The suggestion to Ms. Hood was, it's really overkill.
These were 2,000, I think, when they bought them.
Yeah, they were very expensive.
Yeah. So
Think about computers, they always cost 2,000.
over time.
It's always 2,000.
That's right. Over time. Yep. That's just true. Decent computers, decent laptops. You're looking at about the 900 to 1,000 range, just to make certain you guys have the good functionality.
206, 208, gentlemen, any questions there? Repairs, maintenance? 206 is travel, 208 repairs.
No.
Education and training, that's 217. Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, just
I
it's
didn't
just hit and
connect that
miss,
number.
honestly.
So probably looks like it's on track at 19 for crying out loud. So I don't have a problem with 217.
Well, I can drop it down to 1,500 if you'd like, just to save some nickel and dime it a little bit, which is totally, which is fine.
I don't think you need to.
Okay.
I don't see it.
310 data processing.
So data processing, I really can't get that cut. I actually have a spreadsheet that you can take a look at, all of the items that we use for data processing. It's this basically here and the expenses that are incurred.
For us old guys, can you make?
What's that?
For us old guys, can you make?
Sorry.
I can see it. I'm just teasing with you.
I'll go get a magnifying glass.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit.
That's fine. You need.
And one of them,
Came out to $9,500 and then you said that's what it is.
so like I said, I really run really close to the razor's edge there. Okay.
Thank you.
So your data processing line item includes software purchase.
That is all, data processing is all software related. So the websites, the Office 365 subscriptions that we use, all of those, that's where it's allocated.
Got it.
That's it.
Any other questions? Budgetarily.
The only other question I have is, we're gonna hopefully have a part-time employee.
Mhm.
I think your hourly rate seems very reasonable. Maybe even a little low, I don't know. But that's the assumption
For
we have.
the part-time or me?
I'm looking at the part-time.
Oh, okay.
It says part-time tech PT help,
Okay.
15.30 an
All
hour.
right.
So the question would be, of course, do we think we could have someone on board by January 1? Because if we do it in February, we could lower this number a little bit. That's only 11 months.
Right, there you go. No, I did that with, I tried to do that, yes.
Honestly, I'd like you to have someone on board tomorrow as soon as possible. I'm just asking if that is something you think is reasonable to have someone by January 1.
I could, there's people interested right now that I could have pretty quickly, but the issue is training them up and who has the skill sets. Alex was an amazing blessing for the county.
Yeah.
As I'm seeing that, as I'm talking to other people about what their skill sets or what they envision for the job,
Right.
he was an amazing asset for the county. So I will work on.
Okay. That's fine, and I'll leave it. I'm just wondering if you thought you wouldn't even fill the job until June, then we could cut that in half, but if we need to fill it immediately,
Right.
I'm good with it.
It's funny you mentioned the hourly, when people talk about the job, they say, so you're gonna give me $20 an hour? I'm like, yeah, that's what I make. That's not what you're gonna make.
Yeah.
Sorry. So,
Well, that's something we could consider, though. You're not gonna get one for a while. Can you do it and get paid a little more?
We saw this with dispatch. You can pay people more money, and that's fantastic.
Only do X.
Yeah, you can only do a certain amount. I mean, I'm already coming in early some days, staying late most days to do the PIO work.
Right.
And so when you start saying, well, can we pay them more and get more out of them? That's a tough call.
Yeah.
So.
Well, no, I don't mean, maybe not necessarily get more out of you, but make you so that, you want to do the overtime.
Right.
Necessary.
Gotcha.
And we're doing it now. I
I
don't know, it just seems to be not fair to you.
I don't know. I think that's part of a larger discussion.
You got a work ethic that.
But I do have an issue that I'd like you to come to us at some point in the future. It's not, it will eventually be a budgeting issue. But I'm wondering about your compensation. What does that look like for comparable communities? Not talking Fremont County IT.
No, I understand.
Comparable communities. Are you being paid adequately?
So I asked someone in my security training program that I'm in right now, in a comparable situation, 6,000 people in a county. He has two full-time helpers. His salary is $78,000 a year. So
The answer is no.
So the answer is no. That's about 30,000 less. So I'm just letting, and he has two full-time people, and they're overworked,
Yeah.
or at least they say they're overworked. So
He asked and you're answering.
yeah, that's it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't think you'd find any of the three of us saying that we think you're adequately paid.
That's right.
Would love to work on that.
Well, we'll see what the future holds.
So another question that eventually we'll get around to budgeting. We've had this conversation informally. PIO work. We talked about, because you're really filling three roles that I know of, right? ITGIS, deputy coroner, and then PIO. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment. Yes, sir.
So as a commissioner, I'm concerned about a couple things. One, burnout, which I think is where Commissioner Kanda was kind of headed, that will you be willing to continue to put those extra hours in if you're feeling like you're getting hosed every day you come to work? That kind of a thing. So that's one of my concerns. And then the other concern is kind of a lack of county government process on how we're going to handle PIO, for example. I think you have allowed us to shuffle off our responsibility to have a PIO onto you. I think you took that on because you're a team player. I appreciate that. I'm not sure it's fair.
I don't even recall much of a discussion.
Yeah.
It was just
I don't know how it happened. I didn't vote for you to be the PIO.
and there was never a discussion. It was just simply a matter
That's the
of
problem.
It was a job.
Yeah, it was Alex. Alex was the PIO. And so when Alex left, that, it was just like with dispatch, where 50% of dispatch came into the IT department. There was no discussion. It was just simply needed.
Right.
Because when dispatch left, there were certain things that needed to be done. So the same thing with when Alex left, it just came back here onto me. So
Where does it belong, actually? Is it an IT responsibility, or if you got a deputy coming in, would he be the PIO or what?
if I would probably move more IT responsibility onto an assistant and keep the PIO. And the reason why is because I've already been through all the training.
Right, you got the systems ability to make.
That's right. And I have the relationship with all of the different departments that I could say, I can go to them and say, we need this, or they can say to me, and I feel comfortable with that. If we wanted to assign an actual PIO, that would be another story, and we would put them through the training, we could get them, then I would have to, there's an element of IT there because I would have to give them access to our websites. I would have to give them access to some of the secure things that we do that they would need access to do their job. That's why Alex was the perfect fit there, but it just, you know, he was moving on.
So maybe that we gotta figure out what you're advertising there. Then. So that's
true.
Something to come, we need to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, right now, do you feel like we should be going after a part or full-time PIO person?
It was said in the sheriff or in the CES meeting approximately 2 years ago, we need a part-time dedicated PIO. And again,
For assessment today.
assessment today, yes, we do. We need a part-time. We need a part-time PIO.
So going back to what you just said about your value in both roles,
Mhm.
if we had a half-time IT, half-time PIO, and that's the same person, I would look at that as kind of an ideal situation.
That would be an ideal situation.
Except you just said full-time or half-time PIO, full-time, half-time. Ideally, is what you said.
Well, I apologize. Maybe I miscommunicated. If we had a part-time PIO and a part-time IT, that would be an ideal situation because
So
they would
that
have
means one guy half-time doing both, or one guy full-time doing half each.
one guy full-time doing half each.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Or you could do part-time IT and then PIO contract work.
Yeah, I
or
think you need
don't
a
know
guy
how
that's
that
gonna be
works.
around 8 hours a day, every day.
And that's what we had. That's what we had with Alex, was he would work for me and then he'd work doing PIO stuff and work for me and doing PIO stuff. So,
Yeah, I mean, whether it's a guy or a gal,
or
a
whatever.
moot point, but we're using guy terms
I'm not,
synonymous, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Non-gender
I
specific
think
person.
one person split between those two jobs would be better than two people.
Yeah.
For me personally,
I mean,
unless we're trying to avoid
Unless there's
full-time
a
employee
whole bunch.
status.
Gotcha.
For what we're talking
No,
about.
we don't wanna, in order to get somebody to do it, we need to make them full-time.
Across the board, Donna, when we talk about a full-time employee's salary and their impact to the county dollar-wise, 27% more, 30,
12.
12%
12
includes all
without insurance,
benefits,
without insurance.
with everything.
And with
Because
insurance, it
segment.
could be 40% if it's a family plan.
So between 12 and 40 depending.
You know, that's why I was suggesting where I take over the PIO duties, because I'm already on insurance, but I don't have to pay for that, or any of the benefits, and then have the part-time person that could take over some of the responsibilities that I do.
Gotcha.
So,
So you might become the full-time half and half and another person half.
Sounds,
yeah, but I mean, that sounds suspiciously close to a decision. Maybe we need
I
to
still
crunch
think
numbers
we
and
need to
actually talk
have a
about
good
it in a
conversation,
commissioner
but
meeting.
I think you need a full-time guy.
Okay.
Both,
All right.
period.
Okay.
We gotta look at that, because in the end, we don't save that much, I don't think, by making, but we need to talk about it.
Yeah, that's true. And does it need to come out of one department, or because the PIO serves every department, should there be something?
Budget item for that. Go ahead.
Chair, I think this is a very valuable discussion. Can I suggest that we do this at the OCC meeting in the near term? Because it's not really, I think we're rather in the weeds right now where
Yeah,
we
but this
shouldn't
is
be, but the questions are absolutely correct and appropriate, and it's leading to the point where I think it has elevated to the point where it probably needs to be a VOCC.
Let's move on.
All right, sir.
Anything else for us?
To cut you off.
No,
Trying to say,
please.
let's do it in the
Yeah,
I hear you. No, I
Turn
appreciate it.
around and say, we vote to do the following, which we obviously couldn't do here. We're not in a position to do here.
Okay,
That's just my suggestion.
all right.
If we
Right.
look at that,
Mhm.
come back to us with, is this what you propose in your budget? Is that going to be sufficient?
Well, then remember, this was what was created before any of those responsibilities were put into the IT department.
We think that, come back to us
All right,
for the proposal.
okay, will do. Thank you.
All right, sir, thank you.
All right,
Appreciate it.
Hey, Vern,
yes, sir.
I hate to bother you.
So we scheduled that on
I gave you.
10:30, I think.
When do you think he's gonna get a chance? to-
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know you got-
11.
Is it 11?
Oh, yeah.
I thought we were moving Charles up.
So we'll be,
Charles, we ought to get me one. I just.
we're taking a break.
So we got enough time.
Hey, Adrian, are you there? He's
So-
muted right now.
There won't be anything this afternoon. If you can get Adrian this morning.
Well, Adrian he's at noon. or he's at-
We're not going anywhere after that.
So we're done this afternoon.
Oh, okay, very good.
Because we're gonna do.
Rachel
both of
Sylvan
that.
upstairs.
Oh, yes.
Would ask if you would come up there and see her.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
So this means Adrian's on, right?
yes.
He just needs to unmute.
Did you give him a call on his cell phone?
Okay.
Yes.
I guess we start anytime. We don't have to wait till 10:30.
So we can save 2 minutes, get him out of here.
And you had something you want me to sign?
Have you sign the work template for reimbursements through the EMPG grant?
Okay.
And 60.
See, I'm giving you back some money, $7,000.
Well, do we need BOCC action on this, gentlemen, signing the EMPG grant?
You
I
never
don't think
have
so.
in the past.
No, I think by consensus, I believe we've already agreed to it, so I think it's fine. Right.
I agree.
So they say they want the jurisdiction administrator title signature, but I can sign it either way, then.
Yeah, but you are that person.
Correct.
And I'll, and
I'll
this,
sign it and put BOCC.
yes, there you go. That'll work.
Commissioner's probably gonna know.
Just get some money in the coffers. I'm going to set up something in the future that you'll be able to sign electronically on the documents. The reimbursement portion of Meredith's salary and my salary for the third quarter. I didn't want to forget to do that.
Good. All right, well,
All right.
Okay, give us back $22,544.
so generally, our format, and I'm assuming we're starting on OEM, not dispatch.
That's why I tried on page 60.
60 or 60, Donna added a page to us.
And 304 would be gone.
So our process generally, Adrian, has been we'll start with any opening comments or generalized questions before we get down into the weeds. And once that's done, then we can just start at one-on-one and go down through the budget items. But obviously, as a new director of OEM, you may have general thoughts. We may have general thoughts. This is a time for us to also kind of work on process without having to be set in a BOCC meeting, just a general conversation if that needs to happen or you want that to happen. That's kind of how we've been doing it. And then we'll get into the weeds of the actual budget. So anything that you feel like you want to generally discuss before we start, or are you okay?
No, let's give it just a general overview. It was, I'm excited to be here, learning a lot about the job and the position, and there's a lot to it. You walk into this position thinking you know it all. You don't. I've been very fortunate, I'll use the term blessed, to have 7 volunteers now, 7 people who have emergency management, public information, clerical. I mean, I'm very honored to have those 7 volunteers. I think we're going to try to limit the operation to 7 for right now, because we don't have the capacity in our facilities to, be able to house any more than that. And so you'll see in the budget that I bumped up the contract labor, 4,000. I mean, that's less than $550 a year to help train these employees, which isn't a whole lot of money. I think our volunteer hours for September were somewhere in the neighborhood of 130 hours. So we're almost at a full-time position with volunteer hours. And I think in 2021, our volunteer hours are going to probably be more in the neighborhood of 1,200, 1,300 hours just in volunteer times. And that's if we do not have any kind of emergencies. So, my salary takes a large portion of the budget, and I understand that. But looking down the future, just want you to know where I'm thinking is, as this department grows, as the complexity of emergency management grows, I will probably at some point, either through grants, try to get another staff position in emergency management, because I think it surely warrants that. We did not do that in 2021. We pretty much went with the budget for 2019. The one thing, and I know money is tight, but through grants, and I have a special foundation that might be able to help fund us a little bit. But we really do need to be thinking about having our own EOC. And my thoughts about that, and I want to say again, I realize money is tight, but we have
Emergency Op Center.
emergency operations center. We just need storage space. Between public health equipment and our equipment, we have really no place to put the equipment. And one of, I guess, the pluses that you get when you get an emergency manager who also is a builder is I do know how to build things. And so if we cannot provide everything I need, at least we could start stockpiling some materials so that we could build a garage type structure that could be used as a multi-purpose facility. And it could serve as a garage to park things. And in an emergency, the vehicles could be pulled out and then the doors would be closed, and then could become our EOC. One of the problems we ran in with COVID is in our agreement to use Wet Mountain Fires. They put some restrictions on. Well, they didn't really put us out. They were very concerned.
Yeah.
So they were very concerned about COVID. So we were not able to operate in an EOC under those conditions. And so what I'm kind of thinking about is like a 48 by 60 building that would be that would have storage capacity, but a meeting facility that could be used as our EOC. And it could be paid for with some contributions from the county. We could use the EMPG funding because there's EOC money available to build the EOC, to build a EOC, to buy equipment for the EOC, to put radios in the EOC. So there is grant money available to be able to do that. I don't know how long the grant money is going to be available, but I know in 2021, there are some grant that are available. Matching funds.
You know how big it matches.
Well, some are 50-50, some are 70-30, some are 90-10. It just depends on the particular grant that you have. And I would just like at least your approval to at least look at some of these grants and come back to you at a later time to say, look, this is what's available. Yes, sir.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Adrian. I'm so sorry. Please continue. I just want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Okay, no. You can ask questions whenever you like. But there's just some opportunities to be able to do that, and we have the space to be able to do it. And I am aware of what we're doing with the the judicial center, and in a judicial center down the road, there is a conference room and a facility. And speaking with Shannon, that would be available to have the EOC there
Temporarily.
Well, temporarily, but I see that as a distant project. We don't know when we're going to get a justice center, and we actually need something today. And so I just want you to be thinking about that. I think I asked for like $18,000 in the capital improvement funding down on line 913. And that 18,000 would be our portion of.
Didn't make my sheet. Did it make your?
No, but it's on the bottom.
Yeah, as
It's got it.
kind of as a
And it's in the
cost share.
capital.
Is it?
It's under capital. And so I just wanted to point, that particular item out. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thanks, sir. There is coronavirus relief funds available from the state that originally came from the federal government.
Mhm.
Some of the criteria are that it's non-budgeted, and that it's a necessary expenditure for coronavirus use. Do you feel that maybe this fits that criteria? If it does not, that's fine. I'm not trying to push something in here. I'm just trying to see, would this be a legitimate expense that was necessitated because of coronavirus?
I can answer that question two ways. Yes, I believe it would be a legitimate excuse or expense and a legitimate use of the funds. Why? Because we experienced some very unique operating conditions with COVID-19. We have a facility that we can use, but I understand the concerns about not wanting to contaminate a building that is also used for other purposes. And even though we have policies and procedures in place for sanitizing and cleaning and things like that, we do not have a dedicated facility for emergency management operations. If we were to build one over by to the east of the sheriff's office, we would have emergency power available to us already. It would be, like I said, a multi-purpose facility. So we not only would be able to use it for storage and an EOC, but we also could have training and other meetings in that building as well. To get back to your question though, some of that money is for things, how can you bring a community? Let's just look at it. Let me pose it a different way. In a building, as I have envisioned, we would have a multimedia system set up where you could also do your board meetings. And one of the reasons that we could not come together was because we didn't have limited space. So we would be able to use that building for not just EOC operations, but public health could have people come through there to get shots. It'd be a larger facility for them where we could properly protect our employees and protect the public in a larger meeting room. We could open up the bays and you could have a drive-through where they could drive through one side, receive what they need and drive out the other side and never have to leave their vehicles. But it would be under a closed space. So I believe since we have no place really set up for all weather use, a building like that could surely be used for fitting masks, for giving immunizations and the public health. So it could be two agencies could actually use it. Public health be able to use the building, emergency management.
So what I think I'm hearing is, well, first of all, one of the requirements needs to be temporary. And I think this could fit because we could say it's temporary until the Justice Center is built.
That is correct.
So it's not a permanent structure. Because that's one of the requirements that we would need to decide, the committee would decide whether that's reasonable or not. And it has to be a reimbursable expense. So you'd have to obtain this building before the end of the year, fund it, and then it would be a reimbursable expense. But I think what I'm hearing is that it would be hard to justify that it is this building would be a necessary expenditure as a result of the COVID virus.
Well, can I interrupt here for a second? Because I think we're getting a little too deep in the weeds about the CVR and stuff. I know eventually it'll come back on the BOCC.
I think it's important, sir, just simply because if not, I'm going to have a hard time approving this because we don't have the money. However, if we feel that it would potentially come back to us, we need to cut it off here just so that we can move forward on site.
Let's go through the budget
with you, and that's
when we
fine.
get to it. Let's have that conversation.
That's fine. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that's my suggestion anyway.
I'm with you.
Okay. So this going through the budget, do I lead or do you guys lead?
Let's talk about salaries 101. Let's start with that.
Salaries, we came in for 2028, 48,960. We bumped it to 56,100. And that is anticipation that as your emergency manager, I'm doing my job and that I would be put in at the top step for the position as we discussed when you hired me. So that's why you see the difference from 4860 to 56,100.
So I thought we had indicated 2% salary increase
And
countywide.
the 2% countywide is included in that. And that brings it up to the top step for the position as well.
Wait a minute.
So I guess I come back to what we discussed. Your perspective on what we discussed was to do what?
That after my probation period, I would be at top step
55, whatever it is.
at 55.
And is that, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look. I certainly can't recall that. I'm not arguing with you, I'm just saying I don't have that knowledge. Was that our agreement when we hired, do you know, Donna?
I can't recall.
Okay.
The 2% increase is 50,856, not 56,100.
And my notes, just to refresh your minds, Jay, when we talked salary, you mentioned that because you were not familiar with me and I was not familiar with you, that we would not put me at the top step.
Right, and it was 55 at 6 months is what we talked.
And then after 6 months, you said you would raise it to the top step.
By the top step, you meaning then that's the cap on that salary?
Whatever it was.
Whatever
I
it
have a hard
was.
time believing I would, I'm not discounting what you said, I'm just questioning that I would have said that because you hadn't, at the time we hired you, you hadn't proved your value. So
That's right.
I would not, I don't believe I would have said at the end of 6 months, I'm gonna go to the maximum. If I said it, it's on the record and I'll go find it, but I would be amazed if I said that. And I'm not saying I'm not trying to discount what you just said. I just don't remember.
So you're looking at roughly a $7,000 increase after 6 months.
That is correct.
That includes the 2%.
2% is 900 and something. I just did it.
Off of 50,000, right? Not 55.
$904.
48,900
Right.
times 2% is $978.
That's for the remaining time period.
And that would be, and then the new salary would be,
Wow.
And keep in mind that 42% of that salary is paid by the state. Item 102 benefits, that's
I'm not
just,
ready, I'm not ready to
okay.
move off salary.
all right, very good.
49. So you're at 48.9 now, right?
48,960.
48,960 plus 978
I
I was talking about.
should be
I can't remember what we agreed to
49,938.
start it at.
Let me do that one more time just to
I
make
don't even know
sure.
what his starting pay was. honestly.
48
I do have it in my notes.
plus 48,900. That should be 49,000. A 2% increase would be 49,938.
2% increase on his existing salary.
Yeah,
That's right.
2% above the 48,900 is 49,908. You didn't check it.
Well,
Okay, that's what it is.
So then I guess one of my questions is, because we don't have your salary schedule for OEM, you said move to the top step. Again, my question would be, is it your understanding that's the salary cap for that job then?
That is correct. And I do have it in my notes from that meeting. And actually, it was a bump down from what you allocated for Meredith, and then it bumps back up to what you advertised the position at.
Bill? What do you think?
I think that's what we did. That's what we did. I remember the discussion. I don't have my notes here either. We're gonna look, give him a chance to get in and evaluate it.
About a 50% increase to go to the number that's budgeted, the new number versus what he's currently making.
So we'll have to see.
You're okay with that?
Given, I haven't seen him, I've seen him doing a lot of work. And that was what we were discussed because we didn't know, and it was a probationary period. Is what I recall. But
And I'm assuming I passed probation.
not yet.
No, it's a 6-month deal.
I
No
have,
one's looking to do any change. I don't think. I'm not. Let me rephrase that. I'm not looking to make any changes. I think you've done fine.
Right, so from my perspective, then, what we're looking at is after 6 months on the job, we're gonna give you the maximum salary that's gonna be on the OEM schedule from here on out.
Provided he passes.
provided I continue to perform as I'm performing now,
You're
which
doing
is
pretty
exceptional.
Well,
Not to brag on yourself, but I think I've done a pretty good job. I don't want to be modest, but, and I wasn't going to debate salary, the date of hire, because I didn't think that that was that significant or important at the time. I thought we needed an emergency manager, and I was ready to come to work.
So I think the issue with me is every employee got a 2% salary increase.
That's all he's getting.
I think that's what we ought to give all of our employees, 2%. I mean, that's what I think. And then at the end of 6 months,
That's right. That's what,
discussion
that's right. I agree.
may take place. So
I
we
think-
budget the 2%
It's
increase.
just whatever that.
But unless we put it in the budget, then it's not in the budget.
correct,
The purpose of a budget is to build in where you think you're going to be, not where you are.
correct.
That's right.
And so by building that in, I'm making the assumption that things are going to continue favorably, and then that money would be there
We can go.
in the
figure it
budget,
out later.
and it doesn't really kick in until 6 months will be sometime
Or it might not
February.
kick in.
And then it kicks in. If my performance is satisfactory, then it kicks in. If it doesn't kick in, it's not going to be spent.
So Donna, a question then. I hate about county government.
And it's not really a raise.
We end up into a salary negotiation after 6 months. In your opinion, has that already occurred through the hiring process?
I believe that we all are aware that at 6 months it would be what the cap was. And that per the performance review, that would be where it was.
Okay,
The only time that wouldn't perhaps, if he were not passing his performance and you decided to add an extra month to it and redo, or you decided to go at 3 months instead of 6. But I think the understanding was that it was 6 and that was, so it would not be another negotiation.
So we did agree to go with the cap at the time, yes, your recollection.
See, I can't remember what the starting pay was. I'm just totally, I mean, I could go grab my notes and see what we agreed on, if I have that on there. I mean, I
don't think we
physically
can
do
do
not
that
know what he makes
after, 'cause
this
this is
month,
not-
to know
this-
if he's got more than 2%.
And Adrian, I'm not trying to be hard, I promise. We're with $293,841 in the hole right now. I'm not planning on getting that even based on your salary. I'm just trying to be equitable with all our employees. That's really where I'm coming from. And this may be even a policy, more of a policy discussion than it is an Adrian salary discussion. I mean, I just don't know the answer. And it concerned me when I saw that because
Where it came up, and I don't mean, where it came up was you advertised the position at a certain salary. And I applied for the position at that certain salary. And during the conversation, it was brought up that maybe should start him less. And then after the 6-month review, if performance is acceptable, you would bump me up to that.
you were candidate number 3, that was your number. And when we were having our discussion on hiring, we said that we were choosing candidate number 3.
Mhm.
We talked about the salary and you sent us, I don't know what it's called, instant message, something on the computer that says, I think the Zoom meeting, I think you said, I accept.
Mhm. That is correct.
I don't, and yeah, I remember that, but and I'm not denying I didn't say it, but I just don't remember ever saying, we'll just bump you right up to the cap as soon as your probationary period's over. I mean, what good is the cap? I mean, what's it to strive for next year?
And that's what we do on other positions of JV.
Which one? I don't remember ever.
There's always been a proposed, a couple of them that I recall, probationary period. And then it was put back up. We did it with Gary Hyde.
Moved him to the top of the salary schedule after his
Up to
probation.
whatever the promotion, or not promotion, but whatever.
I don't disagree with you that at the end of probation, we have come back and looked at salaries and
Right.
determined whether, excuse me, the salary during probation should be adjusted. I agree, we have done that in the past. But I don't remember ever saying, and I maybe.
I don't know if we recorded the meeting or not. When did we do it? I can't remember.
I don't ever remember saying.
He's got his notes.
I do have it in my notes.
So we can talk about that. I don't think it matters right now. It can be done later after the fact here. Because right now, when is the probationary period over? February, May, June?
End of January.
Okay, so it's 1 month with the 2% raise is what he's talking about right now. And so what the difference is what, $6,000 or whatever it is after the increase.
Well, I would propose that we go ahead and deal with this figure here and then at the end of the probationary period, then have this discussion again. If that's what we said we were going to do, then I think we're bound to do that.
I do, that's what
We're not going to do it based on some notes from our employee, in my opinion. It would have to be us all agreeing that that's what we said, that's what we're going to stick to. If we didn't say that, then we're not obligated to stick to that. I'm not trying to cheat anybody out of money. It's more process. And you mentioned policy, which I guarantee you we don't have one. I'll bet money on that. I doubt we have a process to do an official performance evaluation based on criteria given to an employee at the beginning of a 6-month probation period. So in my opinion, we're in pretty lukewarm water here, but I would suggest that we leave this figure in here for now, revisit it, because if it's not in here, then there's not much to talk about, to Adrian's point. And if it's here, that doesn't mean that that's what we've agreed on as a salary. That means what we budgeted for that salary.
It's gonna come back that we agree.
I would guess
that
that
this
it
is the
probably
number,
will.
and we agreed to it in the budget. That's where it's gonna come back to.
Right.
But you guys gonna have to deal with it. I don't.
And Donna indicated she didn't think it would be a salary negotiation issue then.
Yeah, we've just never had a new hire that was. So just based on that, so could this be? Absolutely, but it's just never happened.
I just, and I'm not the employee, but I just struggle as a commissioner to say, okay, we're gonna, in 6 months, move a director to the top of the salary schedule, and that's where he's gonna be for the rest of his time here.
Unless we commit to that.
Raises
Unless we said,
notwithstanding.
that's right.
Unless
That's right.
we commit.
And it is absolutely your call. And I just do not, and I actually think I was not in the room. I think you guys sent me a text and said who, or you said the number 3 or whatever you said. And then I called. So I don't think I was even in the meeting. So that's why I can't recall.
So,
Go back.
yeah, I'm willing to leave it. I almost would like to leave it with an asterisk to say this is a budgeted amount, not a contracted amount, but we don't have contracts either. So it's just a reflection on a sorry state of affairs with our process is what it really comes down to. And we're getting caught with, you know what, down. So,
Well, it's easy enough to find. I mean, we have a recording of it, do we not?
no.
Well, then there's really no way to know.
I got my notes. He's got his. You've got yours.
I didn't take notes.
And Tom, I recommend that we continue. We can,
So I don't know, what do you guys,
Leave it. And then we'll see where we are.
leave it and revisit it, or leave it as the new salary for the director? Because I agree with Jay, that's what it's gonna come down to.
Now, Adrian, please
That's what
understand,
we
I
said.
promise you, this is not a reflection on you. This is more of a philosophy that we need to work through.
oh yeah, and then when you set a salary rate in a job vacancy announcement and a candidate interviews.
We got that announcement and it's,
Yeah.
and it's true. And I've
It's in
always
there.
heard 55,000. Doesn't even surprise me.
I thought you accepted 50 grand is what I remember.
And that's what I think I remember.
I think what I said was I'm not going to fight over salary. I wanted the position and I wanted to get, we needed a position and it wasn't important. And we said,
I've said my piece. I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm like you. I think this is a cap that future administration is gonna have to skin. But certainly,
Yeah.
we're gonna.
I think what he's saying is the cap was 55
And
and we
it's-
hired him at whatever.
and it's right in line with all the salaries for emergency managers and all the surrounding counties. I could say that too. So I don't think you're overpaying or underpaying. I think it's where we are,
Okay.
but I'd like to continue.
Well,
The
I'm sure
benefits.
you would, because I get that, I understand that, but you don't get to make that call.
No.
My issue is a large salary increase in 6 months on the job. I would guess in the normal world, it's damn near unheard of. But if that's what we said,
That's what
then
we
that's
said.
what we're gonna have to deal with.
This number represents, just FYI, because I just did a 55,000 plus 2%, it's 56.1.
Right,
That's what the number.
that's what's
where you got it.
indicated earlier. Yeah. Understood. So on at-will employees, when do you deal with salaries other than right now, today, at this moment,
Today.
right? We don't revisit that again typically.
No,
No, not unless it was a personnel issue.
Or
So
agree
let's-
to do something.
We,
different.
we basically are saying if a 6-month evaluation, and again, this will sound like a bunch of cockamamie, it really doesn't, this is not directed towards Adrian Washington, it's directed towards the process.
Mhm.
If the employee passes the performance evaluation at 6 months, then we're also saying we're agreeing to this 51,600. If the employee does not pass a performance review, then is the assumption that he would remain at the salary that he or she was at.
Determined at that time.
Well, determined or not. She
That's how,
said it's not
that's how
negotiable.
Bridge is. If a
That's how
guy
it
is at 3 months, sometimes they're outstanding, 30 days probation and they're up to what they were.
Right, but that doesn't apply because you
But
said
then
it's
it
6
was,
months.
sometimes it's 6 months and they're not up to par, but they're not bad enough to not keep. Then they are put back on probation for 1 to 6 months.
That existing
That's
salary,
part of the deal.
or terminated.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you know,
I
they're-
would feel most comfortable with this number being 51,000, which is 50,000 plus 2%, but I'll go along with whatever you guys want, since I will not be here.
I don't like it, not because of Adrian Washington. I don't like it because our process is absolutely in the toilet. I will subvert to this. I'll submit to that.
This is not a final budget yet. I'm gonna go look at my notes after this meeting and see where I got it.
On, gentlemen,
We're leaving it at 56, whatever?
Yep.
Okay.
benefits 102. I'm assuming that's based on that 56-1.
Yes, sir.
Contract labor, you addressed that a little bit.
I bumped it from 2 to 4 because I have 7 volunteer employees and I need to train them and send them to training.
Can you live with 3?
I could, but it is reimbursable. So contract labor is reimbursable almost at 100%. So I think leaving it in at 4,000, being that it's reimbursable, the net doesn't
I
cost
don't know
us
why we would do that, wouldn't do that. It's reimbursable through what?
through the EMPG
That's what I
grant.
thought.
So it's a reimbursable expense. So
So we basically look at that as a pass-through.
pass through, yes, sir.
Okay,
Operating supplies.
hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
I was wondering if that was reflected as income somewhere else to show it's a pass.
Oh, look,
If it's not,
page 12, I believe.
Just a page or two right before,
Okay,
Before 12?
like 58.
oh,
There's hazardous mitigation, EMPG special
it's a
project.
pass.
Oh, EMPG, yeah.
Yeah,
what line you on there,
and then
Joe?
OEM,
What page?
58.
Uh-huh.
And then on hazard mitigation, it's right down is 222.
Yeah.
And then two,
EMP, yeah. And then quite a bit of the way down is the 60.36.36520. Oh, and then there's hazard mitigation
Right.
a little more down. I think, well, maybe Homeland too. There's quite a few,
Right.
quite a few pots of money.
But you're targeting the EMPG grant to pay for your contract labor, is that correct?
I would target that grant, but I also would look at the Homeland Security grant for some of those costs.
Those are legitimate costs.
58,
Yeah.
just a 58.
And then, yeah, hold your thumb on that because hazard mitigation, I'm assuming is going to be treated the same way.
That's what he said in Homeland too, right below it.
Are you okay on contract labor, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Okay. 222 hazard mitigation. We're assuming that's going to be a pass-through as well, or?
Yep, it should be. And some of that contract labor comes with the rewriting of the hazard mitigation plan. That's where that 36,000 comes in.
And the prior year had 69,000.
It was in 2019.
Yeah, that was for the big fire. Hazard
Fire.
mitigation we did in
Yeah, that's,
Silver Cliff Heights.
Yep.
Or Silver Cliff Ranch.
yeah.
So the 5,000 then is a pass through.
Mhm.
I would assume that's how you're going to handle it.
The 5,000 there is also a special grant project, and that's also passed through.
203 operating supplies.
203, we bumped it. You got to buy more supplies when you have more employees.
Well, you don't have any more employees.
Well, I have volunteers. They're not paid employees, but
Correct.
volunteer employees.
That doesn't mean we have
What
to
kind
fund
of
it.
supplies are they?
Can I make a comment? We don't budget for volunteers.
He's asking us to.
No, let me finish. We don't budget for them, but we're treating them in their additional expenses as if they're employees. We're buying them training, we're buying them extra supplies and things like that. I think the BOCC needs to determine, are we willing to allow, and I'm not talking about Adrian again, this is more philosophy. Any organization in Custer County to take on employees and then increase expenses to the county based on those volunteers. I mean, this is just a question.
Can't have a volunteer that isn't qualified.
Why?
So what do you do?
To address your question,
Sure, please.
I think in terms of the grants that we receive from the agencies, those grants do allow for training and expenses for volunteers. So when we accept the grants and we have volunteers, then we can use those grants to supplement our budget. So again, it's a pass-through because the grants allow us to use volunteer labor and volunteers to do projects. So in a way, you are correct.
And I'll buy that, and I have no issue with it if it's a pass-through. It's with the expense of the county I'm concerned about. So my question is, where are we, is it the prior page where we see how much grant money is coming in?
No,
Where is that?
58. You have to add up those 58.
58.
So let's look at that. 223 is 10,000. Homeland Security is 22.5.
For hazard mitigation.
36,000 hazard mitigation,
36
36
on
now.
222 for hazard mitigation.
And,
Was five,
And 10 for the,
46 for OEM for the state grant, right?
what line number?
60, 36, 36520.
First,
36520 is OEM. So it's 46.
Revenue, is that correct?
that's right. Expected revenue from grants.
That's fine.
So,
So 101, 36,000, 5,000 and 223, 22,544 and Homeland Security 317. Your contract labor is also reimbursable under the EMPG grant under item 101, the 36,000 there. That's where the contract labor could come out of that. And there's also contract labor in 222 hazard mitigation.
so the revenues, Donna, are the 60 dot numbers, correct?
Correct.
I was going up and adding some of those numbers above, which is absolutely a mistake. So
I think
46,000 for OEM. Is that correct? That's a grant.
Yes.
And then hazard mitigation, I'm just recapping 36,000, 46, 36,
And
and
Homeland.
Homeland Security 22.5. So that's our projected revenue from grants for OEM.
Yes, that's what I was.
And it should be the 99,544.
Okay, so let's figure 100,000 for
We're at
grants.
99,544. I mean, that's the total.
That's the approximately the total for grants.
That's 73 and 30.
Okay.
On those grants, just to help me, we're talking the contract labor, correct?
Yes,
Hazard mitigation, 5 million.
So
The operating supplies, not all of them, but
no, that's,
what you think? I'll say grant, just so we can just, I'm just trying to make sure.
so let me give you numbers. I have them here. So 36,000 under 101 salaries.
I'm somewhere else.
so you're gonna use that 36,000 for the
This
salary.
is 50, what is it,
Use a
40 or
portion
60?
for salaries and for other things. So yes. Because some of the communication costs comes out of that, some of the training costs comes out of that, some of the travel costs comes out of that.
Okay,
So it's 36,000 for that. The hazard mitigation grant, 36,000 for that one. You have 5,000 in EMP special projects. And then you have 22,544 in Homeland Security. So the total grant contribution is 99,544.
100,000. Now, what I'm trying to do
100,000.
is equate on your budget that you're asking for for us to budget for your department. Which one of those are covered by those grants?
Right.
So I can see they're offset. So, and now I'm on
Start with
page
salary.
60 when I do that.
Right.
Right,
So I went to contract labor, that's going to be covered by the grants.
So some of the contract labor would be, some of the salary is,
Hang on, I'm not there.
okay,
Don't jump ahead.
okay.
Do it one at a time. We start at the top,
Well, it's-
56,500, it's 30,
Okay.
whatever.
None of that is.
Yeah, it is.
yeah,
That's
some of
your
the.
salary. Oh, I see.
40% is paid for by,
Okay, so
or 60% is paid by the grant.
Got it. Okay, so 40%. How much is our share?
So roughly 25,000, roughly 22 something.
60% of that.
You think the grant will pay what percent of the salary, generally speaking?
It's about 42,
40%.
42%.
42%.
Right.
And in 2021, that's going to bump up considerably. Well, it's not going to bump up as much as we had hoped. It's going to bump up some,
The percentage or the
Yeah,
amount?
you okay.
the amount.
Sure.
So any or some, we're not making a blanket statement, but grants will pay some salary, contract labor, hazard mitigation. Some you're going to apply to your operating supplies.
Right.
And I would say the contract labor a majority of that will be paid for by grants. And that addresses Jay's concern. So I think the amount that would come out of, say, county funds would be minimal. It's an in out, so you have to pay it and then you receive it back.
I'm cool with
Sure,
that. I have no issue
reimbursement.
there whatsoever.
Reimbursement.
No issue there.
So if we look at your whole budget, 125.5 times 60%, we're probably going to be on the hook for about 75,000.
Well, let's see, I show you on the hook for looking simply at totals, you're on the hook for 35,000. Rounding up.
Okay, I took 125.5 times 60%.
Okay,
That's
you're
right.
correct, because in my figure, I had the 18,000.
Okay.
So you have
Right.
absolutely correct.
Right,
If you
okay.
take the 18,000, then we're at
Yeah,
the one.
we're not down there yet. We're just on
Yes.
this 125,514. Does that make
Yes.
sense, Don, what I'm saying? I just took his total budget line off of page 60, multiplied that by 60%, 75,000.
Be roughly our cost.
Yeah, generally, when we've been going through this budget process, we look at an item and the presenter will say, that's a pass through, the X grants paying for that, and we move on.
These aren't straight.
Now,
man.
you're saying, yeah, they're not straight grants. You're saying, I'm going to use some grant money. Let's talk about operating supplies. You're saying, I'm going to use some grant money to pay for that, but not all. There'll be some county budget money in that as well.
That is correct.
How do you determine
I
how
think
much
that's
is
fine.
which budget?
Well, obviously, being that I work for the county, I try to minimize the county's
I don't
expenditures.
have a problem with this, other than it's significantly higher than it was before,
Which is, Jay?
the operating supplies.
Oh, okay,
I
gotcha.
mean, it went up
Right.
significantly, you know, if that's what it is, that's what it is. I'm not gonna nickel and dime, it just, you know, it's just higher than I expected.
It went up $500 between
The notice I'm looking at.
3,500. It was 3,500 on the line item 203, and 2020 was 3,500.
Right.
And in 2021, I asked for $500 more.
Oh, we have 48.
We got
We have
48.
4,800.
Uh-oh.
I only have 4,000
All right.
on mine.
I
So,
wonder, bro, you said 500 a minute ago too.
Well, I tried to give you more money.
I should
So
have
we
just
take
kept
that
quiet. I-
So it's 4,000.
$4,000.
Subtract 800.
So I'll take 8 off.
Okay.
So I'm gonna take
Sorry.
800 out of our deficit for,
Well, if you have in your budget, let's talk about that.
Just
No,
in
I'm
case it
kidding.
wasn't fun enough, let me have
I'm kidding.
you're fine, you're fine. We gotta laugh occasionally.
So I'll take it down to 4,000.
4,000, okay.
I feel much better, thank you.
206, travel.
That's a significant
And I
increase too.
increased that, but in your first year, there's considerable more training involved.
For you.
For me.
Right, and you've upped your training budget
That's,
by 50%.
that is correct, to reflect that in the first year. And that's as per your instructions and your job duty description, because there's a lot of training involved
No doubt.
in the first year.
Gentlemen, your feelings on that?
I'm okay.
I'm good.
Okay, 208, repairs and maintenance. You want to speak to that, Adrian?
I have 1,500.
You got-
Yeah, I guess that's the first thing. We better make sure we're all on the same.
Yeah,
page.
we're at 1,500.
Okay,
What's it repairing and maintaining the truck or
It's-
something
it's-
else?
It's maintaining the facility, the building, the truck.
okay.
I mean, $1,500, that's less than $12 or $125 a month.
Now, I don't think your budget's responsible for the building.
Correct.
And capital,
No,
maintenance and all that. we
that's,
put
and
into
that's
a
something
pot
that
anyway.
I think we need to look at from the standpoint of the bigger picture is because if you charge me something for the use of the facility, then I can go into the grants and have have the grants pay a portion of that
That's the
cost.
way to make it.
That was a conversation, so I think
Offsets and
you need to at least put something in
You
that.
need to add a rent line.
Well, I think we need to be looking at that down the road because I think we're missing opportunities.
Yeah, we are renting the building currently, or we're renting your office space.
Right, space in another building that you don't need to maintain. That's gonna be maintained on another
Yeah.
pot.
Doesn't the county own that building? I mean, do we pay rent?
Search and rescue.
Search and
We
rescue.
pay them rent.
I didn't know that. Okay.
It's like $100 or something.
But
So I
down,
understand what you're saying.
yeah, down the road, I think we need to,
Quite well, very well taken. I have no issue with that. That's correct. You're correct.
So you're right with 1,500 there.
Yeah, I'm not gonna have a problem.
The truck, the way it's been behaving, may not be enough.
It's a good question about the truck. Do you use the truck for personal use or just company business?
only for a county business.
Thank you. I mean, county, not company.
Yes.
But when I do budgets, this is what I think company.
Trust me, I have a very nice vehicle, which you've seen that I use for personal business. I only use,
Yeah, no, you have a wonderful vehicle. That was just a question. I ask everybody who's got a company, a county vehicle, how much personal use do you use?
0.
That answers the question.
So we're good on 208?
Yeah.
Okay, 217.
217.
And this is different training than line 103, is that correct? Because you said the 4,000.
103 is contract labor. So that's
the
just the,
training of your volunteers, and the 3,000 is for training for Adrian. Is that, do I have that right?
well, the contract labor is training for, it's set, it could be used for salary to train, not specifically training. It's contract labor. So that's a labor. Someone does a job, you pay them.
Right, but what's it for?
Earlier, you told us
You said it was
that
training.
4,000 was to send.
Well, if I said that, then I was incorrect because the training line is the 217 line.
Right.
And then that line is where the training would come out of, and that training could be reimbursable on some of the grants as well.
So let's
go back
Let's
contract
back up a
labor.
little bit, yeah, because you indicated that part of that 4,000 was to provide training for your volunteers.
If I said that, I was incorrect.
So contract labor,
I know.
you going out and hiring somebody to do something for you that you cannot do.
So let's look at it under the HAS mitigation plan. We can use volunteer laborers to help review the plan, write the plan, take notes.
You're right. Thanks, Mr. Downey.
Right,
That's
but
what
let's leave the volunteers out of it because we're not paying
You're
them.
gonna pay somebody.
I'm going to
Doesn't
pay
matter who it is.
somebody.
888.
I can bring someone in to do
Okay.
a function within the OEM.
Are you going to
Correct.
pay
And that's-
volunteers to do that?
Could be.
It could be volunteers. It could also be
But you wouldn't
non-volunteers.
be using them as a volunteer. You might use the same person.
Yes.
Let's say I'm volunteering for you, but now you say, hey, on the side, I want to hire you to
It's
write.
like
this
Vernon. It's
plan.
like Vernon. He was contract labor for the coroner.
And Tom, you're absolutely correct.
Okay, so you want to leave contract labor at 4,000,
Yes, sir.
which is probably one of the highest contract labor lines in any budget department we would look at.
But we are also doing major grants this year. We're doing a rewrite of the hazard mitigation plan for the county, and we're going to need some of that labor to do that.
Okay, and this will be the first year, from my experience, that we've paid anybody to write that grant. It's been paid by the OEM director, or it's
I
been
think that's your job.
Well, it's being
paid
paid.
by the OEM director.
Well, actually, it's funded. There's a special grant. That's what that 36,000 is for. And it was funded by the state 5 years ago when it was done, and it's going to be funded by the state in part.
To help write the
In
grant.
part,
Absolutely.
in part, and that's the train or the meeting you and I set in on.
Yes, sir.
I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying that if that's where you're going to pay that out of, that's contract labor. I
Yes,
got no problem with that.
yes.
Paying volunteers, then they're no longer volunteers.
They're contracting.
Right. Does that make sense? or-
Yes, but what you also said is that when a volunteer is a volunteer, there's a
Right,
volunteer.
exactly.
But when there's an opportunity to provide payment, then they're no longer a volunteer, their status changed, they become contract labor.
And that's just a decision arbitrarily you're gonna make when, hey, you know what?
Get the right
I
guy.
appreciate you doing this as a volunteer, but I think I'm gonna pay you because I have money in my budget. Is that how that's gonna occur?
It could occur that way, yes.
Or you could use an individual with the expertise to say, appreciate you volunteering. I'd like to hire you now to do this job.
That is correct.
I think that's.
Because they got the
understandable and normal.
expertise. Could be a guy that
That is correct.
I would just, for clarification is all, I just get hung up on this stuff. You may hire somebody to write the new HAS plan
That
or
is,
help.
that is correct.
The word volunteer never enters into that conversation.
That is correct.
Okay, fine. All right, so 217, that training truly is training, and I appreciate that line being in there, that we can look at that as training, whether it's you or anybody else that needs it.
Yes.
Okay. Philosophically, then, gentlemen, I think the VOCC has a responsibility to look and say, okay, are we okay with paying for training for volunteers? That's what it boils down to.
can do it.
Correct. And fundamentally, I have no issue with training, paying to train a volunteer to do their volunteer job.
Right. Okay.
That's not there.
Let's move on.
Fundamentally,
Okay.
if they're gonna volunteer and they need expertise to do it, I'm good with it.
Right. MRC, we provided training for those folks.
Correct.
223, special project. What is that?
Oh, correct.
From time to time, as the state manages its funding budgets, there's year-end money available. And so special projects are year-end money that becomes available because all the grants were not, let's say, exercised to their fullness. And so that is what that would be. So special project
What would
money.
you spend $10,000 on? Give me an example.
Let's say buying furniture and equipment for the ELC. We need chairs, we need tables, we need boards, we need computers, we need radio.
Project.
Well, it is a special project underneath the state.
It's a generic term that the government
It's
uses.
grant money.
There's a conflict though. There, I thought it was $5,000 on the other page that we were looking at.
It is 5,000.
You've got 5, we got 10. So
I think the expenditure is the 5,000 match for it,
Yes,
that it's 5 is revenue, but 10 on the expenditure.
so what is it to us?
Is this
5,000?
budgeted $10,000 to spend on special projects, or is it $5,000?
That's
The expenditure is 10,000 on the summary page.
Of which 5 is county expense and 5 is.
right.
If it's a
So it's
50.
5,000 less than what it shows here. I mean,
And so if it didn't come through, that the revenue would be 0 and we would still have the 10,000 would revert back to the,
Or if it came through and we didn't get funded,
then it would be 10.
10,000.
so it's something we don't count.
I think we should treat it like a pass through.
That's what I think it is.
Yeah, if it's.
And if it doesn't pass through, we don't use it.
Yeah,
Right.
right. You cannot use it if it's not.
Right, that's what he's saying. It is a year in, the government, the Air Force did it, the Army does it, at the year end, they call it, it's a bucket, and they go back and they say, what have you got that's legitimate cost? And in this case, it's whatever it's called.
So we show an estimated expenditure of 10,000 on the EMP special project. And the revenue on,
So it shouldn't really count against our bottom line.
it shouldn't,
should
if
take
we
it
have
off
it
our
under
bottom.
revenues. I don't see it under the revenue.
It shouldn't,
The EMPG is usually 36,000, that 10 is added to there, or there's 36, I mean, it's in one of those pots of money, I'm not
Okay.
sure which
so
one.
it's not fair to show it as a hit
Not a line
against our,
item, it's wrapped in one of those
it
other.
should be taken off our top line.
But if I don't put in the expenditure side, then we would overspend.
Well, you
our
need to put
money.
it on the expenditure side.
It is.
It-
Well, does it say 5 or 10?
Bill,
I
look
did.
at line 223.
Yeah, I got it. I see it. It's 10,000.
10,000.
I see that, but where she's saying she's got to show it to make it a
That is the
wash.
show. Well, if I don't show it as expenditure and he did spend that money, I would need a supplemental budget
Right.
because we would overspend the fund.
Right, I see that.
And you're saying on the revenue side, it's wrapped into
One of
Has
those,
it
and I'm
been
not
or-
sure which one it is.
Homeland.
Okay, so if
Security.
that's the case, why would it be an impact to it? It is a pass through.
But it's not 100%. It would be a
Okay.
10 and 10, but it's a 5 and a 10. Well, I have to show
Okay.
what's being. I'm not
I
sure
understand what you're
happened.
saying, but I'm not sure if it's 10 and 10, then it's a wash.
And this is not a wash.
Okay, so should that expenditure show 10 or 5?
It needs to show 10 because you would have to spend 10 to get the 5.
Okay,
So it's 50-50.
so it is an expenditure. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'm really not enjoying this process because
Understatement of
I
the
am not making
century.
this as a joke. I'm really kind of ticked off. Seriously, I would like to know if we have an expenditure here, tell me what grant it's coming from. So I want to see this budget again with this as being 100% reimbursed by whichever one it is on this line, what
Right.
percentages, if it's not, I have no idea what I'm looking at here.
Okay.
It seems like smoke and mirrors to me, and I'm really kind of getting annoyed with this. This is very difficult for me to make a fiscal decision based upon, and this isn't you, it's just.
So you're right,
process
Jake,
is
because
horrid. I have
what he,
no idea what the hell's going on.
well, what I wrote down here, it looked like off the top of our budget, we're accountable for 36,000 on the salary. Was that it? Or was it, that was what Grant's paying for? It sort of gets to what Jay's saying, because then our bottom line is not $125,000 that is coming out of the county money. It's going to be whatever the percentage is.
I've already calculated that and shared that, 75,000.
Right.
I have,
So,
that number is right there.
Right,
right.
right. So I think on this particular issue is the fact is we can't go back to the revenue
Right.
page on 58 and see a line item for this EMP special project.
That's
That's part of the hangup.
Yeah.
You're telling us it's in there.
I can't have a line item of revenue for every single piece of money that would come in. There's a chart of accounts that has to fit in there.
Yeah.
So sometimes a pot of money may have 4 things in there, 100,000, and it was 4 at 25.
Where I run into my question.
And you're right, it
I'm
is
sorry to
confusing.
interrupt you, but where I would come is, if the grant is 100,000, I think it's my duty to look at this and make sure that the expenditures against that grant don't total 125,000. That's where I'm coming from.
And I think on the budget request, I think I did send Mr. Washington's in. And I think if we could peek at those budget docs that he submitted, it might help you a little bit.
I had it and then I
That are on
canceled it because I wasn't sure we were ever going to have it.
I can't remember if he was first but it's in that.
I got it.
that email.
That same sheet.
Yes. I think he has it,
So
he can handwrite a note, he's just not putting a number
if
somewhere.
you're satisfied, I'm satisfied, but I'm just,
Well, the way my typos are going, I could have this totally wrong, so.
No, you're,
Thanks, you go to confidence, Jay.
We're not doing anything that we're not getting paid to do, no doubt about that. Maybe torturous for Mr. Washington to sit through it, but that's part of the deal. So we'll get through it.
But he has it broke down, and I
next year
think
you're
it
gonna
would
have
be a
the same
lot clearer.
questions as new commissioner, at least one.
It was after the sheriff's, correct?
I'm not
Yeah, I
sure.
know it was. Yeah, yeah.
It's with
that's right, yeah.
Stacy and,
OEM, and these weren't numbered, so, but it's after the sheriff, so you gotta go.
And Jay, I'm
on that
kinda
document
laughing.
right
It did
away.
say.
not at you, but it's the same thing that I have to do when I was going through these things.
Right. So the revenue isn't addressed in his documentation. though.
Actually, it is. And I'm looking at this spreadsheet, which I think is really good.
yeah, see, it's.
Like if you go to 101 on salaries on this spreadsheet,
Well, we gotta find that one.
okay, Adrian did
I
say
got it.
of the 56-1 salary, for example, I'm just going top line,
Oh,
of that
36.
estimated current revenue is gonna be 36,000
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
This helps me a lot.
That's
This
what
is
he's
where I
got.
was-
That's
This
what
is
I'm looking
where,
at.
this is where I was having cramps over all of this.
And the same thing with the EMPG special project.
Yep.
His request was 10,000, he's budgeted a $10,000 revenue.
Right.
This helps me immensely. Thanks for showing this to me.
Yeah, it was.
You making fun of my cramps?
See, just ask your, oh yeah, my duty report.
Didn't make me giggle though.
Now, let me, no, I got one. Let me throw out a
But it was.
editorial comment. And this would be for Adrian's benefit. From my perspective, as a new commissioner in 2018, we didn't go through this. We had an OEM director that threw so much information, believe me, that is a polite term,
Smoke and
that
mirrors.
we all just sat back and went, whatever. Well, those days are over while I'm a commissioner.
Me too.
And that's why you're having to sit through this torture, because I'm with Jay, just not gonna sit back and deal with a bunch of smoke and mirrors and a lot of fast talk, because that's what we put up with for a year and a half.
No, but for me, it's a learning
And
process.
as
So
I've said to you a couple of times already this morning, I'm gonna say it one more time, Bill will probably test me, but this is not you.
No,
We're not
I
picking
don't,
on
I don't
Adrian
take this
Washington.
personal.
We're trying to figure out what in the world is going on, and this helps me immensely.
I think he's done a great job of pulling it together. That's what I've seen. I agree.
Yeah, no, this helps me immensely.
Okay, are we good on EMP 223?
I'm good.
All right, the next line would be 305 on communications.
No
Do we have
change
a
from
year
last
to
year.
date? And you have 7,500 there. Are you committed to that figure, or can we come off of that some?
He's
'Cause we
almost
gotta
used it
Come
all.
off of somewhere.
Almost used it all.
That's the DSL, the landline and a cell phone.
Okay, and so where are we at now?
He only has 15% left.
Okay,
Let's leave it.
okay. Insurance.
What's I mean, this is crazy for me to even care about it, but why would we budget $70? What is that even
Well,
for?
because I give you a discount on medical insurance. I would like
Well,
to,
we got you up in benefits up above.
well, I
so
know, but
Whose medical insurance are we talking?
It's only life insurance. He does not take our insurance.
Right.
plan.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not
I
arguing.
just
It's
want to
fine.
note that I saved you $6,900 doing that.
Thank you.
As we do also individually, because none of us are on that.
Actually, this entire room does that.
Yeah.
Do they? Wow.
Not a one of us. on
Yeah.
Look at us.
But net, it is,
You know insurance?
but net, it is a saving.
No, it's a-
Sure.
To the budget, so,
Absolutely. That's why we. 312. Dues and subscriptions, we're all right with that?
We get Medicare.
That's where I'm looking. That's why I'm asking Kara. The rest of us, I know why we don't.
But Jay, it comes when you have a wife who provides you with good insurance.
It's wonderful.
Amen. Saves the county money, all about saving money.
Mine provides with ulcers.
312. We're okay with the dues and
Yeah, I
subscriptions?
don't have a problem. You gotta keep up to date with what's going
600,
on.
what did he say here?
314.
That went up a whole bunch. and I was curious as to why.
Because of the hazard mitigation grant or the rewrite of our county, Custer County Hazard Mitigation Grant. We're going to have a lot more advertising needed in 2021 than we had in
That happens every 5 years. he said.
Yep.
It's legit. It's fine.
Then Homeland Security, obviously a grant.
Yes.
Yes.
And so then if he shows 20.
We took 800 off because of a typo
Yep.
on operating supplies.
Phew, yay.
Can we renegotiate that $800?
The actual
Can we split
amount
it?
the county's accountable for, a lot less than 125.
Because I'm behind two.
I've got it right here.
Just a second.
We need to discuss the
We're not done.
$1,000 building.
Yeah.
293. 41.44 minus 800. Okay, bring us 293, 041.44.
And the number right before that, between two,
893, 841, 44, we took 2,000 up from the coroner.
so we're from 295 to 293,
That is correct.
and 293, 041.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so let's continue that conversation about the building. Not gonna argue with most of what you said. I just don't think we can afford to do it this year. Now, that being said, I hesitate to get into this whole conversation, but Jay was right. It does apply. I just didn't want to get in the weeds that far at the very beginning of this whole budget process. If we look down the road to say, or to ask that committee, do they believe that is a reimbursable expense under this coronavirus relief fund? Number one, it's permanent structure. I don't care how we wordsmith it. If it's sitting on a concrete pad, which would be insane to do it without,
We're done. If
we're
that's
done.
the case.
So I'm just gonna give you my opinion. I don't think this is gonna be a reimbursable expense with coronavirus relief.
Okay.
But I'm willing to take that out of the box and argue the merits of the request.
Maybe the building is, but maybe some of the guts, stuff that you could, that would be
Well, the only way
like
you
a yacht center.
get a temporary building is to put a trailer or something like it, which is gonna, and I don't know of any temporary storage buildings, but I bet if I could, we could put up a structure temporarily, and then I could unbolt it from the foundation, and it could be removed. I don't think the
Sure.
federal government would make us do that.
That's what I'm saying. We could wordsmith it, however.
I'm uncomfortable with that.
I just can't support $18,000 this year. I'm not saying I'm against the idea. I think it is a need. I think you lay out a pretty good argument for that. I give you credit to that. If in some point we do a building, maybe it's this year, I'm just saying, I told you how I feel about it. But if a building was built, I appreciate the multifaceted use perspective that you're looking at.
Can it be used, special projects that you mentioned?
Well, I think
Can we buy the materials and get?
I think there's possibilities of ways to do it, and I put that 18,000 in because you surely aren't gonna get it if you don't ask for it. You notice I asked for
We
18,000.
appreciate you, and that's why we're having this conversation.
In 2020, I asked for 18,221, 18,000 in 2022. If you don't, part of this process is anticipating what your needs are gonna be.
Right.
We have a big need for a building. If it's in the budget, it allows me, and even, so I'm gonna look at it this way. I put it in the budget so that we allocate it, but I anticipate if it's not there, then I can't apply for grants. If it's there, it allows me to say we budgeted for that.
Right.
Money is tight, so if it's not in the budget, I can't apply for grants. If it's in the budget, even if our understanding is we're not gonna spend the money.
Well, there's the whole caveat. For these three seats, if it's in the budget, we've given you authority to spend it. Unless we have some under the table back.
And I would put an asterisk on that is money that's budgeted, but I will not spend it if we cannot get matching grants. For example, if you gave me 18,000 and we could get 50,000 in grants, we've completed our project. So it's
Right.
good business.
Right.
To spend 18.
Ask us if we put 18,000 in and you come back and say, well, I need 10,000 just to match this grant. Then we just throw our budget basically out the window. Now, I grant if it's in there, it's budgeted, right?
We need to go look at what's available. That's the only way you can do it. I don't know how much it costs to look.
Go ahead.
I didn't think of this.
So it's a catch-22. I understand.
Yeah, it is.
But if it's not in there, then you can't apply for grants. If it is in there, you can. We could put it 18,000 and try to get matching funds. As I said, I have a foundation that might be interested in helping emergency management. That's money that we can get, but if it's not budgeted, then I can't even go
What's
to.
magic about 18? What's it?
Jay, you
Over
have a
grant.
Yeah, I think you made a very good case as to why we could use a significant facility. I'm gonna build And I kind of agree with the discussion that maybe we can't afford the whole thing at this time. I think if we had, and your question about storing things, and there's not a place for storage, that to me is very significant. It's more important to me than drive-through immunization shots is what my mind was telling me, because we've got that covered. May not be great, but we have meeting rooms if we need it. That really didn't. But the storing of our equipment is very important. So I'm wondering if rather than a permanent structure on a slab, if you had a Connex, one of those shipping containers or two of those, would that be sufficient for the storage aspects of this? And that I think would probably fly with the COVID relief fund because it's not a permanent structure.
Can't park a
Well,
truck.
it could, but some of our stuff, and I like where you're going.
I'm just asking.
The unfortunate is some of our stuff is heat, cold sensitive. So to store electronic or to store medical supplies, to store gloves, it's just not suitable because you go out there, your gloves are worthless because they've frozen, for example. And so you almost need, and I think because we are acquiring stuff through CARES Act money, you have to have a place to put the stuff that you're acquiring. So as part of the acquiring, we need to be thinking storage.
Okay, and taking that another step, I appreciate you explaining why those containers don't work. What if the county rented, your department rented a climate controlled storage unit or a small warehouse, 2,000 square foot warehouse that's climate controlled or something for storage like that. I'm trying to see if I can solve the problem through the CARES Act Relief Fund as opposed to having it come out of the taxpayer dollars.
I think if you look at like the buildings the Rotary are using, it is kind of permanent, but it's not permanent because you could take it down. And then 5 years from now, we might elect, well, not to take it down, but put sides on it. So it can be temporary in nature, and yet anything that is temporary can be made permanent with adjustments. But so you are not fudging the grant, you are not misleading people. It's a temporary structure because it doesn't have all the features of a permanent structure. And then we could use other money to make it more permanent. So
I think we're going too deep here. He needs money to go after grants for lots of different purposes. And it's smart to budget for that rather than trying to come up with some slush fund that we haven't used and then say, all right, we got 5,000.
18,000.
Well, I'm not saying 18 is it. I'm just saying, I don't know why you picked 18.
Well, I'm just going along with.
But I like the idea.
Yeah.
I think the request is 100% valid. I think the necessity of it is actually real. But I question whether when we're already 293,000 in the hole or whatever the number is, I can't see very well.
293.
Yeah, we're not.
93 in the hole, we would end up going an additional 18,000 in the hole if we granted this, and that is an issue.
This wasn't in that number, right? This is just a budget.
That is
Well,
not,
Not on the left, but it's in the middle. So it's in the
What does that
overall
mean?
number on the far right, but not in the general fund because it is listed.
So it is
capital.
accounting against us right now.
Yes, but not the line on the left because that's the general fund.
We don't know what you mean.
I don't know
by
what that
line on the
means
left.
either.
Your little chart,
Okay,
the line on
mine's
the
buried.
on the
So
left is the general fund and it's road and bridge. And so
so I'm looking at department request 125,514. That does not appear in my mind to have that in there.
it is not on that one.
That's the one.
It's
I'm
on,
looking at.
it's on here. It's in the
it's on the
capital
emergency
outlay.
service, capital outlay. That's
So the 125 ES and
Got
that's
it.
on.
So it's not part of the 456, 9, whatever it is.
Got it.
Sorry.
it shows up as a line item in capital improvement. It does not show up as a line item in emergency service.
Oh, yeah.
So we would reduce our deficit by 18,000 if this was totally denied. I'm just so I understand.
Yes, but
On capital
not,
improvement,
but not that fund.
but not this fund.
Understand, but I'm talking about our overall budget.
Yeah.
That's what I'm-
Exactly.
Okay.
I just don't think we can swing it this year. I don't argue with one other thing you say. I appreciate and respect that approach. I just can't support it. Sorry, we just don't have the money.
Is there a way in the budget, and I just asked this question, that you can have asterisk expenses so that I can at least, as I'm writing grants or pursuing money, say that we did budget for it, even though, I mean, it's like, I'm not quite sure how you
I
can.
understand what you're saying, Adrian.
Right, I do.
So it would be money that is budgeted, but you would not use it unless you had a grant to offset it.
That's correct.
I get you.
What percentage? 100%? 50%?
We don't know.
It gets to that point yet, but it's, because the budget does not
Don't know.
allow for that at the moment.
But he
it's
will
a
know the
very-
minute he starts writing the grant for
But
it.
it's a very fair request.
It is.
You know, see,
I'm not saying it's
that really, especially here, because this organization depends on 60% or 40% grant money, and you gotta go get the grants. So he's got to be able to chase them.
Well, I think, no, I'll rephrase that. I know you can write a grant without having this budgeted.
I'm not saying that.
Because they will ask you, or they will tell you, if you want this grant, you're gonna have to come up with X number of dollars.
That's right.
Doesn't have to be in your budget.
That's my
You have to
point.
come up with it.
You've got to be able to match whatever the match is. And so
I'm
that's,
saying the
the county-
same
the same thing. I
Will this
understand.
come out of general fund as
Right.
unbudgeted or will come out of the budget because?
That's
it's
right.
budgeted?
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
But Adrian said he couldn't do it unless it was budgeted. I disagree with that.
No.
well, what,
I've written grants that were not budgeted.
right. I don't think he understood what the options
I think
are.
he did.
That's the difference. No, I don't, because he can go into a pot. If you're gonna chase one and it's real, we're gonna find the money, is what we're saying, because there
Well,
is a
and that's,
pot.
and I understand what you're saying. So it's,
I think if you decide to write a grant and you need a match for it, you come to us.
Right.
I
I don't think
Exactly
we're
right.
gonna give you the money. I think you have to
That's what I'm
come make a request for that.
Correct. If it's not budgeted, if
That's
it's
right.
budgeted, you do not have to.
That's
Correct.
exactly right.
and so you're okay with me pursuing an opportunity to get grants to be able to meet the needs
Come to
of
us.
public health, OEM, the coroner's office, search and rescue, to have better storage. If
On
you,
our
if you,
purchasing policy, there's a form request that you come to the board, you tell them
Right.
what the grant is, what the match would be. They grant you the permission to move forward. So it's a case-by-case basis before the Board of County
Absolutely agree
Commissioners.
with
But I
that.
think the answer you're looking for, yeah, I support you trying to find some grant money to help offset the cost of the storage building. Now,
I agree. And if you came in and said, the total building with the air conditioning and heating, because it sounds like that you're gonna need that, is $75,000 and I can get 50 of it through grants. The question to the county is, are you willing to put up 25 grand to do this?
Right.
that's
And,
correct.
and that would be on a case by case.
And that's where we have to make trades on other things that may be wanting the same money.
and then a secondary question would be in your scenario, do we go to public health? Do we go to search and rescue? Do we go to whoever and say, you're gonna have to chip in some of this?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Oh, it's not taking the whole load. If anybody else is gonna put anything in there, it's gonna have to be a shared expense.
No, and I think that's very
appreciate the
reasonable.
collaborative effort that you're coming from. I want to do this for everybody, not just for me.
So
That's right.
bring us to a head or to a bottom line
Conclusion.
conclusion. May I suggest, let's remove the 18,000, encourage Adrian
Right.
to go ahead and fill out the form when you find grants that can be used for this. Come back to us and say, I have an opportunity to do X, Y, and Z. I need you to match X amount of dollars, and that would be an off-budget capital expenditure we would have to make outside the budgetary process. Because there may be other things that you need to. So that would be my suggestion. Let's take the 18,000 out and handle it like we do every other matching fund that opportunity comes available.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, given the where we're at financially.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable.
We deal with it with economic development. They come to us mid-year and say, boys, we need $5,000 to match this $60,000 grant. Okay. And that's how they, so
Okay,
not a,
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
certainly I don't want you to think it's the condensation on the
But
idea.
then, in fact, our bottom line.
It's the process.
It did.
I think
It's a
it's a
waste.
wonderful argument.
Anything else, gentlemen?
I'm good.
We're in agreement on that. We scratch that line item. Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Perfect. Good job. All right, sir.
All
Thanks.
right,
Do I get in the notes?
In the
right
back.
back there, we'll grab them.
They're a dime. We're really low on the budget.
Oh, I do.
We got that taken care of. We got the quarter
There you
taken
go.
care of. We got IT
You're welcome.
taken care of.
Thank you, guys.
Two bags.
Thank you, Adrian.
Good job.
On sale.
All right, see you later.
Okay, I got the bottom
Thanks.
line when you're ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I took 18,000 off. First I took 800 off. This is a typo.
And that's only 41.
And that came to 293, 041,
Right.
44. And then I just took 18,000 off. And we're at 275, 041, 44. Good.
And Charles Vogel is on.
On the Zoom. No, I'm not.
What's going on?
Charles Vogel's on the Zoom.
I'm sorry,
Open my Zoom somewhere.
I think you have
First,
the
I'm trying to
reference.
find the darn thing. I'm not very good at Zooming.
Are we gonna hear him?
We're gonna get on Zoom here in just a second.
Can you hear me?
Got you now, Charles.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, then we're good. Thank you. Yeah, good morning. What do you want, Bogle?
Well, and what I always want.
Okay, money, which your wife told me was your middle name. Or is.
Well, you know, we have developed a relationship with Dale and I, and he's very handily, you know, he'll say that he will worry about the technical aspects, and then he says, hey, Bogle, we'll go get the money.
Yeah, exactly. And he says, Bogle, you go get the money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've accepted that mission, and so that's what I'm here for. And with your comment yesterday, I would be less than truthful if I didn't say I have two other things that I would want to share and discuss with you too.
Because of my relationship with you, I think I can ask you the following two questions. How much do you need and what are you going to use it for?
Well, we are projecting, and if you want a little background, I can certainly share it with you. We're projecting that on the behalf of our continuing broadband improvement program, that we should suggest or submit a grant request to DOLA later this year for what will be, and we've had discussions with 3 different engineering companies and gotten 2 ballpark numbers for a study, a feasibility study and evaluation for the implementation of what we've been calling the Tri-County fiber. Current best guesstimates after considerable discussions, this study to substantiate further funding would cost just under $100,000. So as I indicated in the email to you on the 4th of October, requesting an unspecified amount of matching funds be considered for the county's 2021 budget. Assuming that we make a submittal, that its award would be in the time frame of February to, well, see, the grant submittal is 1 February through middle of March, and then like the schedule on the EIAF grants, we would expect an authorization in the March, April timeframe.
So you're talking Dolo.
Yes. And from the best relationship and approaches for such a study, Dolo would seem to be the best source.
Gotcha, okay.
How many dollars do they have available, Charles? Is it 100, 500K or what's the pot if we're competing?
Well, they've got $5 million a year that's specifically for, and I think it's for the next 4 or 5 years. Well, the first year, I think it's the next 4 years for middle mile broadband. A study like this would probably come out of their general funding pot, opposed to that bigger number.
How much are you requesting, Charles?
Yeah.
We would be requesting just under $100,000.
Yeah, okay, so if that conversation, no, I mean, how much are you requesting from us today?
I didn't specify, but typically the starting point for such a grant is 25% matching funds. So $25,000 nominally.
And you don't think Dole will say, whoa, boys, that's a 50-50 match?
Well, they might say it, but and speaking quite frankly, we've never satisfied that wish on their part, but that's where the conversation starts. And, and the last grant that we got to support the existing forecast for the EDA grant, we asked for some 97,000. The only matching that we had is I had some old money that supported the tower project from Elpamar in the amount of $10,000.
Right.
And that was the only match that we gave for that. I have been doing some preliminary checking with Elpamar. There may be a situation where they only make grants at a maximum every 3 years.
Right.
And so we're right on the cusp of a 3 years since we got the 10,000 that we used under the current tasking.
So are you asking us to include $25,000 in the 2021 budget for communications?
I would consider that that's a maximum, yes.
Okay. And that's for the middle mile. It has nothing to do with the 6 tower project. Is that correct?
No, this is the next. This is the Tri-County Fiber, which is becoming more and more obvious that we're not going to be able to do that quick enough, with the engineering and subsequent funding. We're talking about probably a $10 million project. And what if you want, I can relate why we've, in all truthfulness, Dale and I were considering at our ripe old ages that the tower project was our last project.
So I want to ask Commissioner Canada for comment because I can almost bet he's got a question for you.
Yeah, I do. Charles, I was going to give you a call and talk about this later too. Right now, we have a combined program with the towns on a fiber program and the tower program with you guys. It's a joint effort. And what I don't want to have happen is something going on that'll jeopardize the grant process for it. And that's something I need to get understood. I want to have a little meeting between you and Carmel to understand that. And then we're going to go before all of us, the 3 commissioners and the mayors, and talk about how these are complementary or not, and how they won't interfere with the new budgets that are coming out now that apparently we still need to compete for to get grants to complete the fiber program and even the tower program. We don't know how that's going to play out yet either. So I understand the value of having this Tri-County, and I'm not sure which counties you're talking about, because I know we're already planning to come out of Orfano County up to Custer, through Custer County and back down to Pueblo County by way of Hardscrabble. So we need to talk and understand that, because we have to have matching funds for those as well, you know, that we're going to have to be dealing with. So we're competing here with ourselves, it seems. So we need to have another conversation. This budget isn't complete until December anyway.
So, yeah, and I guess, Charles, if I can kind of peel a little hide off of the, hold on just a second, Charles.
No,
Don't see it.
President's back there.
Do you want me to, which phone?
Just a minute here, Charles, if you don't mind.
He's got it.
Okay, the lost has been found. So this is the way I've tried to look at it, and you correct me if I'm off the rails. This request is to really start the wheels turning on a whole nother effort. Even though we've talked about Tri-County, this would really be the first official action move towards bringing that to fruition at some point. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the tower project on the wings. We've got whatever we call that other mess we're in with Carmel. I guess that's
Broadband fiber, period.
yeah, the broadband fiber project. And then this would be a third project that may or may not parallel and work in complement to one of the projects going on.
Because the fiber goes to Walsenburg on the fiber program. So it goes to Walsenburg to Custer County, which is where you're proposing your new project comes from Walsenburg to Texas Creek.
Go ahead,
Well,
Jay.
let me expand that.
Hold on.
Charles, one
Charles.
second, please.
Jay has a question or comment.
Comment. We just came up with the proper procedure for just the last person who was in here who needed a building. And we came up with the process on matching grants and how you do that. I'm going to suggest that this follows the same procedure. Fill out the form, come to us, tell us what the matching grant would be. And then at that time, the then sitting commissioners could determine whether they wish to fund it or not. I'm having a hard time putting this in the budget on what we anticipate may or may not happen when we're currently $275,000 out of kilter. So my feeling is, while I think this is worthwhile, I'm not ready to put that into our budget without any further, without following the procedures that we have in place. That's my opinion.
Okay. And I would throw out a personal opinion to, in all fairness to your group, Dale or Charles. Man, I'd love to see some completion on these projects before we keep kicking a new can down the road, and obviously committing future administration to some degree to deal with whatever we saddle them with now. Does that make sense, Charles, what I'm saying?
Yes, but I guess it falls back on a philosophy I have, is that there's no such thing as a good surprise. And I relate that and to you all, is that as part of the thought process that we're going through. And the reality is, while I would certainly like to see the tower project completed, but from a practical standpoint, you know, this stuff is all of it, whether it's the tri-county or tri-government procedure, all of this has taken longer than any of us would hope. And the fact is that our demand for internet support is moving faster than our collective capability to implement the improvements to support the need. And it's, gosh, I just had my economic development meeting, and we're talking about we had Brian Turner, the CEO of Solvista there. He's got growth plans through their system that includes Custer County that can be limited by broadband. We were talking about increasing education in our school. We're talking about jobs and it does not allow, it doesn't, let me finish this and then I'll shut up. It does not allow a nice, neat, one step at a time process.
I think we understand that, yes. Go ahead, Jay.
Here's my comment. This commission, the current Board of County Commissioners has not agreed, has not debated, has not decided that we support the Tri-County Fiber Project. And until such time that that is debated in a BOCC and it is approved by the county commissioners, I have absolutely no interest whatsoever of putting in a budget any money for that project until it's debated, discussed, and approved by the BOCC. That's my comment.
Mr. Kanda?
Yeah, I have the same comment, and I agree with what Jay just said, Charles. And secondly, the broadband tower project and the fiber project together, in theory, give Custer County the optimum broadband capability, both above timberline, below timberline, and in the cities. I mean, that's how it's laid out. Tri-County is getting helping the Upper Arkansas Council of Governments and that kind of thing. That's all great, but that's something that we can deal with later, but we need to understand it.
Well, I would suggest it's been in our strategic plan for 6 years.
Doesn't matter.
We're sticking with our plan and we're trying to support it. And again, no such thing as a good surprise. So it's like I told you last week, I had to ask at this time.
Yeah, there could have been a worse time to ask, but that would have been when we were 400 or 570,000 in the hole. Now we're just 275 in the hole. But yeah, I agree too. I think we coming off of this budget hearing we just had with a county entity, let alone a non-county entity, we refused to budget monies for the potential need for a grant. We said, you come to us when you have your grant application submitted, you tell us how much are ready to submit and tell us how much your match is, and then we'll consider that. So I understand where Jay was coming from with his remarks, Charles. I agree. I think we look at this down the road. I don't think I'm prepared to support it today.
I've done what I said I was going to do.
All right. Very good, sir. Thank you. Dale, hello. He might be.
I have two other things of information.
Okay.
If you've got time. You will be the first of our 3 governments to be notified. And I did send you another email to each of you just before the hour to include 2 attachments. One was the one that the background on the Tri-County, and the second one has to do with our Main Street Wi-Fi system.
Okay.
The subject line says the Main Street Wi-Fi is at risk. That system is in its 5th year of operation. It was precipitated to support the Ride to the Rockies event.
Yep.
It has been part of our plan, our original broadband strategic plan.
What do you want?
This is a matter of information, but it is, we have been subsidized by a grant for the last 5 years to including this year. Basically half of the cost of maintaining that, and which is, it cost us $10,000 a year to operate. And basically, we will be sending out letters this week to the 2 towns to indicate that it's in risk in that due to the completion of that promised support for 5 years, we may have to terminate the operation of the Main Street Wi-Fi system during the first quarter of 2021.
Okay, I got a question for you and Dale. Is Dale on and can hear?
I don't see that he's on
Okay.
the list.
All right, well, pass on a message if you would, please. Our computers are starting to blow up over this Rosita Tower issue. I don't know if you're included on those. I don't think you are, but we are getting hammered. I would ask for you, number one, to let us know what, and I could look it up probably. I thought that the preliminary engineering report was for a 140-foot tower.
Dale has joined us.
Okay. I don't want to get into a long drawn out conversation because we've still got a schedule this afternoon, but is that right now planned for a 140-foot tower?
Yes, sir.
Is it planned right now to go on the site that we all looked at on that first site tour?
Yes, sir.
And do you have a proposed access route, an easement platted?
We do. And you were up there, I believe, in the same route that we walked. The only change from what we walked was that we had walked across those mine tailings,
Yes.
and based upon input from our environmental impact assessment consultant, we've been recommended to take the access road to the actual site, loop it around that mine tailings and avoid them. And that's the only change from what you walked.
Okay, and would that going around the tailings be above or below it, up towards the ridge and around it, above that big tree?
Probably the bottom.
It'll be north of the tailings.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, I don't know if you heard, we've been getting a lot of emails and people in Rosita are freaking out because the word's starting to spread around that community that there's going to be a big tower put up there. They don't believe they're going to get a chance to have any input and blah, blah, blah. We took that land off of the market. It's no longer on the market for sale. And it will not be until we can document with long lats on a map that will be a legal document when we put that property back up for sale.
And we got to figure out what the value is.
Okay, well, we appreciate that, but I'm not aware of what you're receiving, but I am aware of the road sign that was posted in Rosita in opposition, but none of this was unexpected.
Okay, yeah, exactly. I'm just telling you as an update, it's picking up some speed. I know your language. I have no problem with that here. I just want you to know that I can forward you all the emails I can find about it that I haven't already deleted. But anyway, you know how it goes. The system's picking up speed and just wanted you to know that they're shooting those over the bow at us. I don't know that you're receiving those.
We're not, and if you'd like to share those, we would be happy to read them because it gives us the ability to understand the perspective that's coming at you.
Okay, good. One more quick thing. We've been in budget hearings since Monday or Tuesday, sorry. I see the emails. I didn't digest them from Dave at State Land Board. So in a nutshell, what can you share with us about the progress where we're at?
You broke up a little bit. Restate what you're asking.
What's going on with the State Land Board in a nutshell?
The good news is that yesterday afternoon at about 2:00, the lease for the Beddoes Mountain site that's on the State Land Board property was put before the State Land Board Board of Directors, and it was reviewed and it was approved, and we're receiving notice that we are able to locate that tower on the State Land Board.
What kind of money are we talking?
It was $2,300 a year, and it's delayed until we have approved the grant has been approved and we have a GC on board. So that's when that lease would start. So it's about a year away if in fact this comes together.
Right. And they have allowed us access to that property until that happens free of charge.
Yes, sir. We're operating on an access right now that runs through 31 December. And when we get to that point, we will request an extension to that and we'll have no problem getting it.
And originally they wanted $6,000 a year, correct?
Yep, $6,600 a year, which they said was their number, and nobody had ever received a ability to put a tower on their site for less than that. And when the dust settled, we came in at $2,300, and it was approved 5-0.
Yeah.
Good job.
And real quick, Dave's role in that, what's his title? He's not on the land board.
He is. I'd have to get that for you. And if you'd like it, I could get that for you because I have a number of emails from him. But he is not a member of the board. He is a member of staff, and he has responsibility for towers, et cetera. And that's why he became involved.
Right. Yeah, I didn't think he was on the land board, but he sure represented us very well in that case. So we're good. So we're back on track up there.
Yes, sir.
Have you been to the proposed site personally?
Mullen has not been to the Beddoes SLB site.
Okay. All right. Very good, gentlemen. Thank you. Appreciate it. Anything else?
The only other thing is current schedule. We would expect to get on your agenda in October, in November, for approval of the supporting information for our final EDA grant request.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
You bet.
Could we
Okay, to see
have,
you. Bye.
Yeah.
could we have some hard copy or something that defines the process that we should follow, with the grant request and the consideration for matching funds?
Yeah, that form is on the county website, but I can't tell you exactly where. I looked at it the other day, so if I'll.
It's located in the purchasing policy.
Purchasing policy.
Very well.
All right, sir. Thank
Hey,
you.
Charles,
Thank you. Yes.
I'm going to give you a call here and I'm going to have me and Carmel talk either today or tomorrow. So are you around to do that at some point?
I've got Round Mountain Board starting at 2:00 and it goes till quitting time generally.
Okay, today. And then, so it'll be tomorrow, then I'll get you.
Okay, we're available to support it. We've had, the last communication we had with Carmel was to confirm the 6 tower site's location.
Right. Okay.
And Commissioner Kanda, this is Mullen. I'll add to that statement. Carmel had requested of
Lost you, Dale.
us the updated V&H course since they've moved. I've held off sending that to him until we got approval yesterday. And you can tell Carmel that before the end of the week, I will send him the updated V&H.
Okay, good. I knew that they'd ask you for that. Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Yeah, take care.
All right. So we're back.
Are we off, Kara?
Yeah, well.